The story begins with Ned Wolkinter being cast out of the famous adventurer party, Stardust Lights. His former companions see only a man with no obvious combat talent, never realizing that the personal connections he built were the very reason their impossible team could function. As Ned leaves, memories of the party's early days return. He had once traveled alone, relying on favors, introductions, and carefully maintained relationships to reach places ordinary adventurers could never enter. Back then, Ned was still an unknown adventurer searching for work and opportunity. He had no legendary weapon or overwhelming spell, only an unusual talent for connecting the right people at exactly the right time. One of those connections secured him passage across dangerous waters between kingdoms, a route normally restricted to elite A-rank adventurers. The sea itself was deadly. Ned simply knew whom to ask. A sailor explains the route and hands Ned a nautical chart, warning him that the waters ahead are far from safe. Ned listens closely, thanks him, and adds yet another useful piece of knowledge to his growing network. The voyage continues without disaster, proving again that Ned's strength does not lie in fighting monsters personally. He survives by preparing early, gathering information, and making certain that help is already waiting before danger arrives. Soon afterward, the kingdom summons talented adventurers to form a new hero party capable of confronting a growing calamity. Many strong candidates gather, but raw power alone is not enough to turn strangers into a functioning team. The officials want glory, strength, and impressive names, while several adventurers hesitate to accept responsibility for leading the group. Then Ned is proposed as the party's coordinator, the one person capable of keeping all those clashing personalities together. The assembled fighters are surprised. Ned does not look like a hero, and even he openly admits that his combat ability is inferior to theirs. Yet leadership is not always about standing at the front. Ned studies the proposed formation: a healer, a defensive knight, an offensive warrior, and a long-range magician. Every member is exceptional, but the group lacks someone who can organize their strengths and cover the gaps between them. When questioned, Ned admits that he cannot fill any of those combat roles himself. The others mock him for needing protection, but he calmly points out that a leader's value is measured by what the entire party can accomplish. Each chosen member possesses an extraordinary blessing: a healer who can recall the dead, a tireless warrior, a knight favored by the gods, and its magician of terrifying power. Ned has no such gift, or so they think. Rather than compete with monsters in human form, Ned accepts the role of managing them. His job is to control the battlefield, limit collateral damage, and make sure every specialist appears where they are needed most. A young noble named Julius is introduced as another talented candidate of Ned's generation. Ned is told not to worry, but the comparison quietly raises a question: will the party continue to value strategy once victory makes them famous? Ned nevertheless joins the expedition and guides the newly formed Stardust Lights through its first missions. He arranges transport, information, supplies, and reinforcements while the others collect the praise. Years later, that imbalance reaches its conclusion. Julius is chosen as Ned's successor, and the party decides it can manage without the man who held everything together. Ned leaves without resistance. The consequences have not begun yet. With no party and no income, Ned boards a ship toward another country and begins planning his next move. He intends to register at the local guild, take ordinary requests, and rebuild his life from the ground up. On deck, a cheerful knight introduces herself as May Ascent from Enluvidia. Ned gives his own name in return, expecting nothing more than a polite exchange before they part ways. May quickly recognizes him. News has already spread that Ned was expelled from an A-rank hero party, and the story makes him sound like a useless burden who survived only by hiding behind stronger companions. Instead of condemning him, May questions the rumor. She has heard that Ned's personal relations skill helped Stardust Lights achieve its victories, yet most people dismiss that contribution because it cannot be measured like swordsmanship or magic. Their conversation is interrupted when the ship's crew spots something far worse than an awkward rumor. A kraken is approaching, and it is closing fast. The sailors estimate that only a few moments remain before the monster reaches them, and panic spreads immediately. The creature is powerful enough to tear apart a vessel, and the passengers have nowhere to run. The kraken erupts beside the ship, smashing timber and throwing people across the deck. Ned orders everyone to move before the vessel is dragged beneath the waves. Ned rapidly studies the monster's behavior. If struck hard enough, it may retreat, but they need a coordinated countermeasure before the next attack. Hesitation will sink them. May tries to place Ned somewhere safe, yet he refuses to hide. He asks whether the knights can drive the kraken away if he creates an opening, and she agrees to follow his instructions. Ned gathers the available fighters and assigns them simple roles, turning frightened passengers into a temporary battle unit. They do not have a perfect formation, they only need one chance. The Kraken lashes out again, but Ned's improvised defense redirects its tentacle and exposes the creature's body. May and the other knights surge forward. Steel crashes against the monster as the passengers attack in sequence rather than all at once. Ned watches every movement, correcting the timing from behind the front line. May wonders why the formation works so smoothly despite being assembled from strangers. The answer is Ned. In minutes, he has learned who can be trusted with each task. Some knights are weakened by seasickness, forcing Ned to revise the plan again. He sends only those still able to fight and keeps the others from becoming casualties. May insists on taking the front and asks Ned to guide her strike. He warns that a mistake will leave nothing but scraps in the sea. She smiles anyway. Too many tentacles close around them at once, and the deck buckles under the pressure. Ned searches for a final answer while May braces herself. The next command will decide whether anyone survives. May blocks the Kraken's crushing limb, but the impact drives her backward and leaves her barely able to breathe. She refuses to fall, buying Ned the few seconds he needs. The monster's next strike is overwhelming. May forces her wounded body to move, yet even she knows that another direct clash will break both her guard and the ship behind her. Then a strange whistle cuts across the battlefield. Ned recognizes it immediately, not as a random sound, but as the signal he had been waiting for. The Kraken suddenly twists away from the ship, acting as though something beneath the waves has frightened it. May looks around in confusion. The sea answers first. A swarm of merfolk bursts from the water and surrounds the Kraken from every direction. Their attack is coordinated, merciless, and far stronger than anything the passengers could have produced alone. May realizes that the mysterious rescuers are not monsters attacking humans. They are allies, and every one of them has come because Ned asked. The Kraken is dragged beneath the surface, while the merfolk tear through its defenses. The ship survives, but the passengers can only stare at the impossible force that appeared from nowhere. The merfolk openly greet Ned as a trusted friend among the land dwellers. Their familiarity shocks everyone on deck, especially May, who had assumed his so-called personal relations were little more than exaggerated rumors. Ned distributes food and supplies he prepared in advance, treating the rescuers not as summoned servants but as valued partners. That respect is exactly why they were willing to risk themselves for him. He explains that he purchased large quantities of apples at the harbor because the eastern merfolk love them, while also maintaining a separate pact with the western Ryugu tribe. Ned had anticipated trouble before the ship even departed. At Ned's request, a powerful mermaid restrains the waves and prevents the battered ship from being swallowed by a tsunami. One favor leads to another. The disaster ends almost instantly. May can no longer hide her amazement. She had believed Ned was merely good at talking, but his relationships connect nations, tribes, and forces that normally refuse even to meet. Ned admits that the eastern and western merfolk are hostile toward one another, so he negotiates with each group separately. His network is not built on universal friendship. It is built on understanding every relationship exactly as it is. May finally understands his role in the Kraken battle. Ned never intended to overpower the creature himself. He simply applied the correct connection at the correct moment, and let the true specialists do their job. Impressed, May asks whether Ned would consider working with her again. He responds cautiously, but she makes it clear that she values what he can do rather than what he cannot. They clasp hands as the repaired ship continues toward the islands. Ned has lost one famous party, but before reaching his next destination, he has already gained a new ally. A better beginning. While Ned sails toward a new future, Stardust Lights celebrates his departure. The members believe the troublesome manager is finally gone, and that Julius can now lead them to even greater glory. Julius accepts the praise with a smile, convinced that the party's burden has been removed. He promises that the group will surpass its previous achievements without Ned slowing them down. Behind the celebration, however, several arrangements have already begun to unravel. Contacts who once supported the party stop responding, and invitations Ned used to secure no longer arrive. Julius dismisses the problem and orders the guards to handle it. He assumes that authority and fame will force everyone to cooperate, never considering that those people had helped only because they trusted Ned. The party members flatter Julius and assure him that the remaining obstacles are insignificant. Their confidence grows louder precisely because none of them understands how much invisible work has vanished. Julius boasts that his personal strength and royal connections are enough to defeat the Demon King. Even old academy acquaintances tolerate his arrogance because they expect to share in the glory. A princess questions whether Julius can truly manage the party and the kingdom's expectations at the same time. He reacts defensively, insisting that every important preparation has already been completed. The court continues arranging support for the hero party, but the atmosphere is strained. Everyone smiles in public while privately wondering who will solve the problems Ned used to handle without being asked. The king and princess decide to support Stardust Lights despite their doubts, arguing that defeating the Demon King must come before personal grievances. For now, the cracks are hidden beneath ceremony. The princess reluctantly agrees to provide assistance and asks that messages be sent through trusted channels. Even here, the instructions ultimately rely on contacts Ned introduced long ago. Ned's former network continues working in the background. Printers, doctors, secretaries, and merchants pass information from one connection to another. Julius receives the benefits without realizing whose reputation still opens the doors. Before leaving the kingdom behind, Ned sends a final letter to his former companions. He admits that he has come to despise the aristocratic world around them, yet he still fulfills the obligations he promised to complete. Back on the ship, May asks whether Ned has free time once they reach port. She wants to guide him through her homeland and repay the help he provided during the Kraken attack. The vessel finally reaches Enluvidia, a country bound by an ancient pact and shaped by legends far older than either traveler. Ned steps ashore with May at his side. May explains that the kingdom was founded around the remains of a colossal dragon, whose power transformed the land and allowed civilization to flourish. Ned listens with genuine fascination. She also tells him about Meteors, the world's strongest adventurer party, famous for clearing impossible dungeons and reclaiming monster-infested lands. Ned has heard of them. Soon, he may meet them. May explains why Enluvidia is crowded with adventurers. The legendary Meteors once gathered here, and the city turned their presence into a source of fame, trade, and tourism. Ned immediately notices how carefully the story is being used. She describes Meteor's celebrated members, including renowned knights and former nobles whose victories inspired the entire kingdom. Their reputation rivals that of the newly promoted hero party from Ned's homeland. May wonders aloud what Stardust Lights is really like now. Ned avoids answering directly, but the question follows him as they continue through the city. At the royal district, May reveals that she arranged an audience with an important aristocrat. Ned realizes that her gratitude after the Kraken attack has opened a door most adventurers would never approach. May admits she becomes nervous around royalty, then asks Ned to help her through the meeting. He teases her calculated behavior, but agrees to stand beside her. They are escorted through the palace and into a formal chamber. Ned expects a stiff political exchange. Instead, the royal guest waiting for him is far more energetic than anticipated. The young woman introduces herself as Lucilla Invidia, Princess of the Kingdom. Her appearance is elegant, but her excitement immediately breaks the solemn atmosphere. Lucilla welcomes Ned personally and thanks him for saving May. She is delighted that May has brought someone connected to so many distant lands and unusual people. The princess tells Ned to abandon stiff formal speech, explaining that she is exhausted by nobles who hide behind etiquette. Ned introduces himself properly, while May struggles to believe royalty is speaking so casually. Lucilla offers a direct reward for the Kraken rescue, but Ned refuses excessive compensation. May was already his ally and helping her was not a transaction. Instead, Lucilla asks him to stay for dinner and share stories from his travels. Adventure tales are her greatest weakness. Ned accepts. During the meal, Lucilla notices one of Ned's unusual keepsakes and asks about it. He casually explains that it came from an acquaintance involved in an extraordinary expedition. Ned recounts how that acquaintance entered a volcanic crater and survived by freezing the entire volcano. Lucilla stares at him, unsure whether such a feat should even be possible. He confirms that the story is true and mentions other companions with equally absurd abilities. To Ned, they are simply people he knows. To Lucilla, they sound like living legends. The princess leans closer, demanding another story. May watches the two of them connect almost instantly, through Ned's endless collection of impossible experiences. Lucilla finally asks whether she could experience an adventure herself. She has spent her life hearing stories from behind palace walls. Now she wants one of her own. Lucilla admits that she fears direct conflict despite her title, and she worries that such hesitation makes her unworthy of ruling. Ned does not laugh. He understands the value of knowing one's limits. He tells her that royalty does not need to fight every battle personally. A ruler's true responsibility is to find capable people, trust them, and make sure their strength protects the country. Ned adds that power without judgment can be more dangerous than weakness. Lucilla is relieved. For the first time, someone treats her caution as a useful quality rather than a disgrace. Before the evening ends, Ned registers Lucilla as a contact through a communication stone. The princess is thrilled, while May quietly realizes that another royal connection has joined Ned's growing network. Far away, a terrible report reaches the court. The hero party has destroyed an entire city during a battle. What should have been a victory has become a national disaster. Stardust Lights encountered a servant of the Demon King and fought without restraint, obliterating a tourist lake, burning the surrounding forest, and devastating the city with their shockwaves. Civilians survived, but the damage is catastrophic. The situation worsens when officials discover that Julius has collapsed from overwork. Without Ned, the magician ignores orders to read books. The healer revives people at random, and the warrior charges after every monster he notices. No matter what Julius says, the members answer that they will listen only to Ned. The truth becomes impossible to deny. Stardust Lights was never controlled by rank or authority. It was controlled by trust. The court refuses to accept that one supposedly talentless adventurer mattered so much. They order Julius to recover quickly and threaten punishment if the party continues disobeying, but intimidation cannot replace leadership. Another report arrives before they can form a solution. The crisis is spreading, and every new failure points toward the same missing person. Meanwhile, Ned remains unaware of the chaos and follows Lucilla through the palace to a private bathhouse. She insists that the royal baths are part of his welcome and asks him to relax. The bathing chamber is an architectural masterpiece, filled with enchanted water and elaborate stonework created for the royal family. Ned is impressed despite himself. Lucilla explains that nobles usually keep the facility private, making Ned's invitation highly unusual. He begins to suspect that the princess is more interested in questioning him than in simple hospitality. Before he can ask, voices approach from the other side of the steam. Ned freezes. He is not alone. May and Lucilla enter unexpectedly, each assuming the chamber is empty. The three realize the mistake at the same instant, and every attempt to explain only makes the confusion worse. Ned slips while trying to retreat and crashes into the water, turning the royal welcome into complete chaos. The dignified meeting is over. Very over. After the bathhouse accident, May and Lucilla are far more embarrassed than Ned, who somehow remains calm enough to help them recover. That composure only makes the two women blush harder. The next morning, Ned walks through the palace garden beneath a heavy mist. A massive shadow rises beside the castle, far too large to belong to any ordinary person. The silhouette reaches nearly to the upper floors. Ned assumes a monster has entered the royal grounds and prepares himself without making a sound. The shape moves like a living creature, confirming that it is not part of the building. Ned keeps his guard raised and waits for the first sign of hostility. Before he attacks, Lucilla calls out to him from within the fog. The terrifying shadow belongs to her, not an invading monster. Lucilla reveals that the enormous presence is connected to her unusual circumstances and royal power. She is surprised Ned stared at it so intently, when even her own father avoids doing so. Ned apologizes for assuming the worst, then asks how she intends to control something so conspicuous. Lucilla admits that hiding it is difficult, but she has learned to live with the burden. With the mystery settled, Ned returns to his practical goal, registering at Enluvidia's Adventurers Guild. The country's branches are not perfectly coordinated, so he must complete the process locally. May volunteers to guide him through the city, and Lucilla provides generous support for the trip. Ned accepts, amused by how quickly his quiet registration has become a royal matter. On the way, May asks about the unbelievable stories Ned told the princess. He explains that those incidents occurred while he was running errands and recruiting powerful allies for Stardust Lights. May presses him about what happened after the bathhouse, but Ned avoids the embarrassing details. He insists that the incident ended once everyone returned to their rooms. She then challenges his adventure stories, arguing that freezing a volcano and reaching a sky temple sound impossible. Ned calmly repeats that every word was true. May begins calculating the ranks of the people around him and reaches a frightening conclusion. Most of Ned's acquaintances are A-rank or S-rank monsters in human form. She wonders whether Ned himself is far more capable than he appears, especially after remembering remarks from the knights. Ned changes the subject and asks what duties await at the guild. May explains that Lucilla has already contacted the guild and arranged someone to assist them for the day. Ned's new connection is working for him almost immediately. They arrive at the Adventurers Guild, where requests, rumors, and mercenaries from across the region gather under one roof. Ned steps inside to begin again. Inside the guild, May looks for the person Lucilla arranged to meet them. The hall is crowded, but their contact is impossible to miss. A respected adventurer approaches and greets Ned by name, startling everyone nearby. Lucilla's message has already placed him under the protection of someone important. She introduces herself as Rhys von Ardiora, an experienced knight trusted by the royal family and admired throughout the guild. Ned responds politely, while May watches the meeting with visible pride. Rhys confirms that Lucilla asked her to assist Ned with registration and future requests. She also recognizes May's role in the Kraken incident, giving Ned immediate credibility among the surrounding adventurers. Ned insists on registering through the normal process, even though it means beginning at E rank. May warns that low rank will restrict major requests, but he prefers to advance by his own methods. The clerk brings out the registration form and asks Ned to record his basic information. At first, the procedure appears ordinary. Then come the 4 important categories: level, special weapons, blessings, and unique traits. Most elite adventurers fill those sections with impressive abilities. Ned leaves nearly everything blank. The clerk assumes he lacks confidence, but Ned is simply being accurate. His greatest weapon cannot be measured by a crystal or written as a conventional combat skill. Rather than chase easy monster work, Ned immediately asks for missing person requests. Such jobs pay poorly, are often cancelled, and depend more on information than strength. Perfect. The guild gathers neglected requests from branches across the country and places them before him. Several cases have been unsolved for months because the available clues are too weak. Ned selects the first case and studies the description of 2 missing men. Instead of searching blindly, he asks who might already possess the answer. He contacts Duke Lewin, an acquaintance blessed with clairvoyance, and casually exchanges greetings before requesting information. The Duke identifies the missing person's location almost immediately. For another case, Ned calls a woman named Charine and asks about someone believed to be trapped in an enclosed forest. Their conversation includes old personal drama, but the lead is reliable. He continues down the stack, contacting Lori and several other specialists. Each person knows one fragment, and Ned knows exactly whom to call for every fragment. Within minutes, Ned compiles locations, conditions, and safety confirmations for multiple missing people. He returns the completed information to the clerk as though the work were routine. The guild hall falls silent. The new E-rank adventurer has just solved a pile of requests that experienced investigators could not finish, and he has not even left the counter. Rhys praises Ned's achievements, but he insists that he merely borrowed the power of other people. To him, connecting specialists is not the same as possessing their strength. May rejects that excuse. Ned remembered every result, chose the right allies, and created opportunities no one else could see. Depending on people wisely is still an ability. Ned accepts that he should not belittle his own work, yet refuses to become arrogant. His network is powerful precisely because he respects the people within it. The guild warns that missing person cases are too rare to support him forever, so Ned must take ordinary subjugation work as well. For now, he will rely on May and Rhys in direct combat. The trio studies the request board and debates their first target. Red wyverns, ogres, and other monsters offer different risks, but Rhys's strength makes even dangerous options appear manageable. May panics when Rhys suggests fighting 10 ogres, creatures that normally require full adventurer teams. Rhys calmly insists that the mission is possible. May disagrees loudly. Ned reminds May that Rhys is not invincible, despite her reputation. May worships the White Dragon Knight so completely that the warning barely reaches her. They finally choose a request and leave the city together. Ned's first ordinary adventure since his expulsion officially begins. The journey into the wilderness is calm at first, giving Ned time to wonder how he is supposed to behave around 2 elite knights. Their personalities are proving more dangerous than the monsters. At camp, May and Rhys insist that Ned relax while they stand guard. He tries to help, but the 2 women treat protecting him as part of the mission. Rhys learns that Ned was expelled from the hero party and offers her sympathy. She admits that she also once traveled with difficult companions, making her more understanding than he expected. Sensing his exhaustion, Rhys tells Ned that he may lean on her whenever the weight becomes too heavy. The offer is sincere, perhaps too sincere. She immediately pulls him against her and announces that her chest can serve as a guard and pillow. Ned attempts to escape. Rhys holds tighter. May explains that Rhys has an uncontrollable habit of pampering younger companions. Despite their age difference being only a few years, Rhys considers this completely normal. Rhys claims that the entire White Dragon Order indulges this behavior and that everyone supports her. Ned realizes he has entered a social battle no amount of strategic planning can solve. She offers head pats, a lap pillow, and even ear cleaning whenever Ned feels tired. He refuses every option, firmly. Rhys continues fussing over Ned, removing his cloak and trying to clean him as though he were a child. He firmly takes his belongings back before her kindness becomes another ambush. Their argument ends when Reese senses a monster nearby. The playful atmosphere disappears, and all three prepare for combat. May misreads Reese's sudden movement and assumes something scandalous happened between her and Ned. Reese tells her to calm down. The monster is the real problem. A wyvern dives from above, its strike fast enough to tear through trees. Reese avoids the attack, but May realizes this creature is much quicker than the kraken they fought at sea. The beast circles beyond sword range, forcing the group to track its shadow through the branches. One mistake will give it a clean path to their backs. May attempts to predict the next dive but miscalculates the wyvern's movement. It changes direction in midair, too fast. Ned studies the creature instead of panicking. Its horned head, long tail, and lighter frame make it faster than a ground beast. But those same traits limit how it can turn during a descent. He explains that wyverns must expose themselves when landing or using their breath. If May anticipates the angle and dodges first, she can strike while it is trapped near the ground. The wyvern dives again. This time, May waits for Ned's signal and moves only at the final instant. Her blade flashes across the creature's path, cutting through its exposed side before it can regain altitude. The wyvern screams and crashes into the clearing. It tries to rise, but Reese blocks its escape, while May closes the distance. Their roles fit together exactly as Ned intended. May delivers the finishing blow and brings the wyvern down. Ned never swings a weapon, yet the victory follows his analysis from beginning to end. After the battle, Ned notices another figure watching from the edge of the forest. The observer has remained hidden throughout the fight. May becomes distracted by the strange closeness between Ned and Reese, while Reese calmly asks why she is so curious. Their teasing hides the fact that someone is still nearby. Ned calls out toward the trees, revealing that he detected the stranger long ago. The concealed presence finally moves. Reese evaluates May's performance and praises her potential, noting that blocking a kraken with one sword was no ordinary feat. Yet May's measured talent remains only level 3. Something does not add up. Reese senses that the guild report was incomplete. More wyverns are hiding nearby, and May's instincts confirm that the defeated monster was only the beginning. A whole flock rises above the forest. Reese tells Ned and May to leave the rest to her, drawing her sword with complete confidence. The wyverns dive together, surrounding Reese from several directions. She does not retreat. One tears through the first attacker before it can reach her. The movement is so clean that May barely sees the blade leave its sheath. A second wyvern attacks from behind, but Reese pivots and avoids the claws by a hair. Her counterstroke follows immediately. The creature falls, and two more replace it. Reese continues advancing instead of allowing the flock to control the distance. May recognizes the style of the White Dragon Order, a sword art built around precise steps and relentless combinations. Every movement prepares the next kill. Reese's blade and footwork merge into a continuous assault, cutting through wings, claws, and breath attacks without breaking rhythm. The sky begins to clear. One wyvern escapes the pattern and dives toward Ned, using the others as a distraction. Reese is too far away to intercept it. May launches herself into the air and strikes the creature's wing, forcing it off course. The attack saves Ned, but leaves her exposed above the ground. Another wyvern appears behind her. Ned shouts a warning. May turns too late. The beast ignores Reese and fixes its attention on Ned, recognizing him as the easiest target. It begins a direct charge through the clearing. Ned reaches for every option available to him, uncertain which connection or tool can arrive in time. There are only seconds left. A strange light suddenly spreads across Ned's body, reacting to the approaching danger. He has not consciously activated anything, yet power gathers around him. The wyvern unleashes its attack, and the clearing erupts beneath a violent burst of energy. May and Reese can only watch through the smoke. When the dust settles, Ned is still standing before the fallen monster. Something hidden within his personal relations ability has finally answered. But what was it? Ned discovers that the mysterious barrier was a protection spell placed on him long ago by the magician from Stardust Lights. She cast it without permission, and it has continued protecting him even after his expulsion. He admits that his former companions constantly attached experimental magic and strange equipment to him. Annoying as it was, those reckless gifts saved his life more than once. Ned cannot contact the magician now, so he decides to investigate the spell later. For the moment, the remaining ogres are marking territory nearby, and the mission is not finished. The group follows the trail deeper into the forest, where the ogres have gathered around a hidden camp. Their numbers are greater than the guild estimated. Reese tells Ned and May to remain behind while she handles the entire group. Ned thanks her, still amazed that a renowned knight is so willing to assist an unknown E-rank adventurer. May explains that Reese genuinely enjoys helping others and takes every request seriously, no matter how small. Her fame has never made her careless with ordinary people. May respects Ned for a similar reason. His power is unusual and difficult to understand, but he continues using it for others despite the pain and rejection he has endured. Reese returns after defeating the ogres alone and brushes aside their praise. May insists that fighting beside Ned is an honor, while Ned points out that he contributed almost nothing to the battle itself. When the reward is divided, Ned tries to return his share. Reese refuses, explaining that his information, negotiations, and tactical advice are as essential as sword strikes. Ned agrees only if the payment is split equally among the three of them. May worries that Lucilla will be furious if Reese continues showering him with special treatment. The women reveal that Ned quietly supports several orphanages and would probably donate any extra reward anyway. He is also connected to organizations far more influential than he admits. Before Ned can deny it, his communication stone begins ringing. The caller is someone he has not spoken with since leaving Intail. Princess Iris Intail appears through the communication magic. She has secretly escaped her attendants long enough to contact Ned directly. Iris enthusiastically declares that no distance can sever their bond, then explains that major changes have occurred in the kingdom. Her cheerful tone cannot hide the urgency beneath it. The king and prime minister are discussing compensation, personnel changes, and the mounting disasters caused by Stardust Lights. Iris asks Ned to help connect the right people before the situation becomes irreversible. She also mentions changes among the cardinals and the orphanage network Ned helped establish. Even after leaving, his relationships remain woven through the kingdom's foundations. Iris tells Ned that the children at the orphanage still ask about him, and that she continues checking their communication stones and funding. Since his departure, the kingdom has become increasingly chaotic. She demands to know why Ned traveled all the way to Enluvidia without informing her, then asks him to remain on the call longer. Ned realizes how deeply his sudden disappearance affected the people he left behind. Ned asks about Emma, Enluvidia's diplomat currently assigned abroad who may possess useful information. Iris explains that Emma has not returned yet, but her travels through numerous countries could reveal what the court is planning. Iris then warns that Ned's father was recently seen acting suspiciously. She believes he may be preparing something behind the scenes, and Ned quietly braces himself for another political problem. At that same moment, the king receives another disastrous message. Stardust Lights has destroyed yet another town while pursuing an enemy. The residents escaped, but the hero party's battle triggered a landslide and left the settlement defenseless. Julius falls deeper into depression, as every attempt to command his companions ends in catastrophe. Nothing has changed. The healer continues reviving the dead, the magician develops dangerous spells, the warrior seeks legendary monsters, and the hero vanishes without warning. They ignore every official order. A court official claims Ned must have controlled them through blackmail or brainwashing and suggests assassinating him. Iris explodes at the accusation, insisting that Ned was the only person capable of holding the party together. The court learns that Ned is currently in Enluvidia, a kingdom that owes Intal a political debt. Some officials see an opportunity to force his return, or eliminate him far from home. Back in Enluvidia, Lucilla suddenly summons Ned to the castle. He leaves the guild party behind, promising to meet them again after learning what the princess needs. May offers to accompany him, while Reese assures Ned that she will remain nearby. Despite the day's chaos, the three have already begun moving like a genuine team. At the palace, Lucilla avoids discussing the embarrassing bathhouse incident and leads Ned into a formal audience chamber. Her playful mood is gone. This request is serious. Ned is brought before the royal council, where officials study him with open suspicion. Lucilla has called an outsider into the center of a national crisis. The princess thanks him for coming, and explains that May helped settle the immediate preparations. Now she needs Ned's network for a threat the kingdom has failed to solve for generations. Lucilla asks whether Ned knows of the poison dragon, the only dragon in Enluvidia that the people do not worship. It lives in the lake region and carries venom powerful enough to destroy entire territories. The poison dragon has ruined farmland, spread disease, and claimed countless lives across multiple nations. It may not equal the Demon King, but it is still treated as a global calamity. Lucilla wants it stopped. Lucilla states her request without softening it. She wants Ned to exterminate the poison dragon. The words leave him speechless. The princess has heard that Ned once helped defeat disasters on a similar scale, but he immediately objects. A creature that defeated armies cannot be handled by one ordinary adventurer. A coalition of neighboring nations once challenged the dragon and failed, leaving the region devastated. Lucilla still insists that Ned's connections make him the only person with a realistic chance. Ned asks who convinced her of that idea, but Lucilla refuses to reveal the source. She admits the request is unreasonable, yet says there is a reason she cannot withdraw it. The royal guards surround Ned and declare that he must accept for the sake of the kingdom. Lucilla looks away, unable to stop the pressure being placed on the man who saved her friend. May is ordered to obey the princess and support the mission, but her expression reveals doubt. Ned notices that Lucilla has been crying and understands that someone else is forcing her hand. Ned answers honestly. He is one of the weakest adventurers in the room and cannot promise to defeat the dragon. He refuses the request as it currently stands. The guards move to detain him, proving that Lucilla's threat to lock him up was not entirely empty. Ned reaches into his pouch. Smoke fills the chamber. Using a smoke bomb, a grappling hook, and the escape tools he always carries, Ned slips through the palace defenses before the knights can close in. He may avoid battles, but he knows how to leave one. The guards chase him across the rooftops, yet every route Ned chooses has been prepared by old habits and prior contacts. He stays one step ahead. When the pursuit becomes too tight, Ned calls Reese for emergency help. His network is not merely useful for grand plans. Sometimes it is the fastest escape route available. Reese answers immediately and rushes toward his position. Ned tells her where the guards are coming from and asks her to stop them without causing a political incident. Ned escapes through the royal castle's back gate and heads toward the guild while armored knights flood the streets behind him. To the crowd, he looks exactly like a dangerous criminal. Reese understands the situation at once. As a member of the kingdom's own White Dragon Order, she can confront the pursuing guards without Ned having to attack them personally. The knights finally corner Ned, but he raises his communication device and tells them to clench their teeth. 7 seconds later, Reese arrives. Reese crashes into the formation and sends the armored guards flying before they can seize Ned. Negotiation can wait. First, she creates an exit. Reese strikes the first guard aside with effortless force and opens a path through the pursuit. The remaining knights hesitate, suddenly aware that they are facing the captain of their own order. Ned uses the opening to escape, while Reese disables the formation without drawing her sword. She keeps her promise, no serious injuries, only shattered pride. Once they are safe, Reese hugs Ned tightly in relief and asks whether he was frightened. He appreciates the rescue, but not the crushing embrace that follows it. Reese casually pats his head, insisting that comforting him is only repayment for his help. Ned removes her hand before she can begin another round of pampering. As they flee, Ned explains that Lucilla's knights chased him after he refused the dragon mission. Reese demands to know what could have driven the princess to such extreme behavior. Ned believes Lucilla never expected him to defeat the poison dragon. If she truly wanted the creature killed, she would have assigned a proven army or elite expedition, not one weak adventurer. That means the dragon itself is not the real objective. Lucilla may be forcing Ned toward the lake because something else must happen there. Reese asks whether the entire White Dragon Order could defeat the monster. Her answer is immediate. Even their combined strength would not guarantee victory. She reveals that a military alliance of several nations challenged the poison dragon 1 year earlier. Reese fought in that campaign, and the dragon's venom was their absolute nemesis. The poison caused hallucinations, blisters, permanent disability, and deaths long after the battle ended. The surviving soldiers wish they had fallen immediately. That is how terrifying the creature is. Ned decides that the only way to uncover Lucilla's true intention is to speak with her privately. Reese remembers someone inside the castle who may help them reach the princess. Their contact is a person Ned once saved, someone who later asked the White Dragon Order for a chance to repay him. The forgotten favor has returned at exactly the right moment. The contact tells them to use the servants' entrance at the Grand Castle. Ned and Reese can reach the inner halls, but only if they avoid the main guard posts. They wait near the entrance and prepare a quiet approach. Reese suggests that simply overpowering the guards might be faster. Ned rejects that plan immediately. Ned reminds Reese that she is the captain of the kingdom's chivalric order. Starting a fight with castle knights would destroy her honor and turn a rescue mission into a rebellion. Reese agrees to follow his plan, then jokingly demands a reward for her cooperation. She calls it the first gift Ned has ever given her and saves the request for later. Dangerous promise. While the guards search every corridor, Ned and Reese slip toward the castle under cover of darkness. Ned quietly notes that veterans like Reese rarely fear danger anymore, because they are accustomed to crushing it. Reese scales the outer wall and gives Ned only seconds to follow before the patrol returns. The plan begins now. They enter the castle without raising an alarm. Ned has memorized the layout, but he knows information alone will not help if someone blocks their path. A quiet voice calls from the corridor and directs them onward. Their hidden ally has arrived. The young servant introduces herself as Hersha, a maid working inside the castle and one of Reese's trusted supporters. Ned recognizes that she comes from a village he once visited. Hersha reveals that Ned saved her village from monsters 2 years earlier. Although he barely saw her then, he still remembers her face, a small detail that leaves her deeply moved. She recalls the days before Ned's old group became famous, when their adventures still felt bright and heroic. To Hersha, that era burned like a torch. As they move deeper into the castle, Hersha begins recounting what happened during those earlier years. The path ahead leads not only back to Lucilla, but also into Ned's own past. Hersha asks why Ned is concealing his identity. He admits that fame brings more trouble than glory, then asks her to guide him to Princess Lucilla without alerting the guards. Because Hersha supervises the servants, she knows which passages receive the least security. She leads Ned through a quiet wing of the castle, but her route is about to create an entirely different problem. Reese and Hersha tease Ned about his guarded personality, suggesting that beneath his calm expression lies a man terrified of loneliness. Ned refuses to take the bait. Then a voice comes from the room ahead. Someone is inside. Ned is told to wait, but the doors open before the warning can save him. He steps forward and immediately realizes the route has brought him to the worst possible place. Inside, Princess Lucilla is bathing. Both of them freeze in horror as Ned turns away and tries to explain that this humiliating intrusion was not part of his plan. Despite the disastrous timing, Ned states why he came. He wants the truth behind her order to slay the poison dragon. Lucilla insists there is nothing to discuss, but he refuses to leave with the mystery unresolved. Lucilla nervously accuses him of forcing the issue while Ned keeps his distance and promises he is not there to hurt her. The comedy fades. A serious answer is finally within reach. Lucilla apologizes for the chaos, but Ned still gives the spoiled princess a sharp flick on the forehead. Royalty or not, reckless children need consequences. Her startled scream echoes through the castle as the others struggle not to laugh. The tense confrontation briefly collapses into pure embarrassment. Once Lucilla composes herself, Ned asks the question that matters. Why was he specifically chosen to face the poison dragon? Her answer begins with a disaster far larger than in Luvidia. Lucilla remarks that Ned has an unusual way of dealing with nobles. He neither grovels nor blindly obeys. Only someone like him would dare strike a princess and then demand an honest explanation. She finally explains that the dragon's poison did not remain inside in Luvidia. It crossed borders, ruined distant lands, and left several nations demanding justice. Although the poison dragon's lair lies in Luvidian territory, it once invaded the kingdom of Intail and devastated the region for months. Even years later, some communities have never fully recovered. Ned realizes the catastrophe matches reports he heard about villages being erased near the border. He had missed the connection because he normally gathers human intelligence first, and researches monsters only when necessary. Luvidia is known as the Kingdom of Dragons, and actively protects many draconic species. Because the poison dragon was born there, surrounding countries assume the kingdom is responsible for everything it has done. Some nations even suspect Luvidia deliberately sheltered the monster. The accusation may be unfair, but grieving countries need someone to blame, and now Luvidia stands completely isolated. The political pressure worsened when Intail's king changed his position and demanded enormous compensation. Other nations quickly followed, tempted by the profit they could gain from Luvidia's desperation. Then Intail offered a condition. If Ned personally defeats the poisoned dragon, its compensation demand will be withdrawn. If he fails or refuses, the claim will be enforced immediately. Ned instantly sees the trap. Intail's king has targeted him from the beginning, using the dragon crisis to force both Ned and Luvidia into an impossible bargain. Lucilla's father accepted because the agreement appears harmless to Intail, and politically unavoidable for Luvidia. Even success would only preserve a fragile relationship, while failure would multiply the compensation beyond reason. Lucilla bows and apologizes. She could not openly reject the demand without making Luvidia appear indifferent to every nation harmed by the poison. The truth is that Lucilla opposed the plan from the start. While Ned completed the guild mission, she repeatedly begged the king to reconsider, but he refused to listen. Ned finally understands why she ordered the guards to seize him. Lucilla was not trying to sacrifice him. She was desperately trying to keep him away from the dragon. Ned tells Lucilla one more thing. None of this is truly her fault. His exile from Intail began with his own dispute against its king, So the present crisis is tied to his circumstances as well. Because Ned was driven out, Stardust Lights lost the only person capable of coordinating its members. Their growing disasters gave Entail's king the perfect excuse to target him again, and Ned accepts part of the responsibility. Lucilla rejects his apology. The real culprit is Entail's tyrant, who merely dragged an old poison dragon dispute into the open and used it to squeeze in Luvidia while his own hero party caused destruction elsewhere. Ned concludes that defeating the dragon alone will not end the crisis. The true troublemaker is Entail's king. Then he asks a crucial question: how much time remains before the deadline? Needing time to think, Ned agrees to remain in the palace overnight. Lucilla orders the guards to place him in their finest room, disguising hospitality as imprisonment. Alone, Ned considers several dangerous options: hiding his existence, manipulating the hero party, or even faking his death after confronting the dragon. Every path carries consequences. By morning, he admits that speaking honestly with Lucilla was worthwhile. Meru, Lucilla's closest aide, still guards him closely, proving the princess has not fully abandoned caution. Meru asks why he did not run despite having escaped once already. Ned explains that after spending several days with Lucilla, he understands her principles, and refuses to leave her bearing blame for a crisis connected to him. Ned prepares to investigate the town, and Meru insists on accompanying him. He remains uncertain whether Entail caused every part of the incident, but he intends to uncover what can still be used. Meru doubts he can easily expose a king's weakness. Ned agrees, yet explains that even one genuine vulnerability could create enough leverage for negotiation, though he would rather avoid abusing his network. His connections could uncover secrets belonging to anyone, from village girls to S-rank adventurers and rulers. Used carelessly, that network would become a weapon capable of blackmailing an entire nation. Ned refuses to turn the trust of his friends into something filthy. Every contact exists because someone helped him, and exploiting them for evil would betray the lives behind that power. He avoids threats, fraud, and deception whenever possible. Still, survival comes first, and circumstances may force him to use methods he dislikes. Meru recognizes the contradiction within him. Ned is practical enough to do what is necessary, yet principled enough to protect those who trust him. He wants his friends to remain people he can admire, not tools dragged into darkness. Returning to the poison dragon, Ned asks what Meru truly wants. She reveals the kingdom has no queen. Lucilla's mother was killed by the dragon before the princess's eyes when Lucilla was still a child. That tragedy explains Lucilla's hatred and her obsession with finding someone capable of killing the monster. To her, the poison dragon is not merely a political problem. It murdered her mother. Meru asks whether Ned knows anyone strong enough to defeat the poison dragon. He does, but those fighters are distant, politically complicated, and far from guaranteed to accept. Anyone capable of killing such a monster must stand among the world's greatest heroes, at least on Reese's level. Ned knows several candidates, including one nearby, but gathering them before the deadline may be impossible. Meru is overwhelmed by the possibility that the dragon can finally be slain. Ned reminds her that his greatest achievement has never been personal strength. It is bringing the right people together. Even if assembling those warriors takes time, the discovery offers Luvidia genuine hope. Ned separates the crisis into two problems: killing the dragon eventually, and surviving Entail's 1-week deadline now. Ned notices Meru avoiding his gaze and asks whether she is hiding something. He does not force an answer, but her silence confirms his suspicion. Her unusually stiff composure makes the secret even more obvious. Ned lets the matter rest and leads her to his next destination, the Appraisal Guild. The imposing building belongs to Luvidia's Appraisal Guild, an organization specializing in identifying mysterious minerals, relics, curses, and other unknown objects. Appraisers combine scholarship, magical knowledge, and practical experience to determine an item's nature and danger. Their guild also supports adventurers by evaluating discoveries brought back from quests. Ned presents several minerals for examination, but the receptionist warns that the guild is crowded and the wait may take half a day. He had expected delay, just not that much. Then the receptionist checks Ned's record and discovers he is registered as a priority client through appraisal guilds across multiple nations. His request moves to the front immediately. Meru is stunned to learn why. Anyone who submits more than 1,000 unidentified objects earns special privileges, and Ned's years beside elite adventurers have produced mountains of unknown materials. The guild confirms 7 priority cards issued under Ned's name across several kingdoms and empires. Even the staff are speechless at the scale of his history. After verifying that he is not impersonating the famous client, the guild agrees to process the request at once. Ned asks Meru to wait outside while he handles the confidential appraisal. An expert studies the strange white stone and immediately recognizes its unusual internal structure. Very few people in the world could identify it at a glance, so a deeper examination begins. The appraiser explains that Ned's priority status is extraordinary, even among elite adventurers. Then his expression changes. Something about the stone is far more important than expected. Ned returns to Meru with the result, and abruptly heads back toward the castle. Whatever the guild discovered has changed his next move. Ned tells Meru that his experience from years beside high-rank adventurers may help, but he needs her cooperation. Before answering, she realizes the mysterious stone is connected to Lucilla. As they return through town, Ned reflects on the appraiser's discovery and on the guarded castle. One piece of evidence has been sitting far closer to Lucilla than anyone understood. The object is no ordinary mineral. Its warped growth pattern proves it is a dragon scale, an abnormal one unlike anything the appraiser has seen before. Ned declines further consultation because he already has the answer he needed. Now he must speak privately with Lucilla, with only Meru present. A sound from behind Lucilla's door confirms Ned's theory. The scale did not come from some distant dragon, it came from here. The door opens and Lucilla collapses as scales spread across her body. The hidden truth finally reveals itself. Dragonization disease. Lucilla gasps in agony while Meru rushes to her side. Ned watches in silence, understanding that the princess has been carrying this curse alone. The transformation surges violently, twisting her limbs and covering her skin with draconic scales. For one terrible moment, she can barely remain human. Meru administers a rare universal elixir, suppressing the attack before it progresses further. Even such precious medicine can only buy time. As the pain fades, the scales begin to shed and Lucilla slowly returns to normal. Ned identifies the symptoms without hesitation: dragonization disease. The illness begins when a human repeatedly absorbs a dragon's miasma. Each episode transforms more of the body, and the intervals between attacks grow shorter until the victim can no longer return to human form. Ned realizes Lucilla was infected when the poison dragon killed her mother. Unless that dragon dies, the curse will continue advancing until Lucilla loses her humanity completely. Lucilla kept silent because the disease is feared and misunderstood. It grants traces of draconic power, so some call it both a curse and a blessing, the so-called hero's disease. A victim who masters that power can wield strength rivaling a dragon. The cruel condition is simple. To be cured, the afflicted person must defeat the very dragon that infected them. Legends tell of heroes who controlled their transformations and fought the source of their curse in life-or-death battles. In theory, Lucilla could become strong enough to face the poison dragon herself. But Lucilla is no legendary warrior. Traumatized by seeing her mother slaughtered, she cannot even bring herself to hold a weapon. The power is inside her, the courage is not. Lucilla admits she once tried to master the transformation so she could avenge her mother. Instead, the unleashed power destroyed everything before her, just as the poison dragon had. The horrified faces around her convinced Lucilla never to use it again. She had failed to kill the monster, and had only become another dragon in the eyes of those she wanted to protect. Only Meru knew the truth and helped conceal every attack. Ned asks how often the shocks occur, because the answer will reveal how little time Lucilla has left. Lucilla transforms every 3 days at worst, usually at night or before dawn in the castle garden. Her endurance allowed her to hide it, but the frequency proves the disease has reached a critical stage. Ned calculates the remaining time. Best case, Lucilla has several months. Worst case, 1 month. He asks whether she planned to keep begging for help, even after capturing him. Lucilla admits that from the beginning, she intended to force someone else to solve what she could not face. She has already said she refuses to fight and does not want others suffering because of her. Ned points to the communication stone Meru carried all day. He heard enough to understand her intentions. Ned says intel can be pressured separately, but the poison dragon cannot be wished away. Lucilla insists he should not handle everything alone, yet she still treats her own survival as someone else's problem. With the deadline closing, Ned admits gathering sufficient reinforcements will be difficult. Lucilla had wanted her secret buried forever, but now there is nowhere left to retreat. Lucilla calmly says she would rather live her remaining human days as herself than fight. Before the transformation becomes permanent, she plans to settle her affairs and accept the end. She fears that using the monstrous power will make everyone fear her. To Lucilla, becoming a dragon while still alive feels worse than death. Reese suddenly interrupts through the communication stone. Having listened to the entire conversation, she announces that she is returning the stone and has already entered the castle. Reese casually explains that she broke in because Ned would obviously rush to save Lucilla. Her relaxed confidence makes the desperate situation feel almost ordinary. When asked for a plan, Ned says the final decision belongs to Lucilla. His friends can offer strength and advice, but she must choose what she believes is right. Ned complains that everyone brings him impossible problems even though he refuses to exploit his connections. Still, his goal and Lucilla's now align. Both need to break the King of Intail's scheme. Reese smiles at the contradiction. Ned may deny being a hero, but he keeps standing up for others anyway. Reese guesses Ned's plan. Lucilla herself is the key to defeating the poison dragon. Ned cannot force her to fight, but he can lead her to the edge of the decision and let her choose whether to cross it. Ned compares the process to leading a horse to water. He can prepare everything and bring Lucilla to the battlefield. But what happens next belongs to her. For his plan to work, Lucilla cannot stand alone. Ned asks Reese to lend him the White Dragon Chivalry Order for the coming battle. Reese accepts without hesitation and summons every available member. A request from Ned is reason enough for the entire order to move. Soon armored knights fill the palace courtyard. The White Dragon Chivalry Order has answered the call. Reese admits she wanted to arrive earlier, but gathering the full squad took time. Her knights joke about being captured the moment they entered the capital, proving even elite warriors can create spectacular complications. Despite the chaos, the members greet Ned warmly and treat trouble as an ordinary part of following Reese. Their loyalty is loud, reckless, and absolute. All 12 knights kneel before Ned. From this moment onward, they promise to wield their swords at his command. Meanwhile, Lucilla feels noticeably better after the elixir Reese gave her the previous night. The relief is temporary, but for now she can stand without pain. Meru explains that the medicine can suppress the symptoms, not cure the disease. Ned realizes just how absurdly rare the elixir must be, far beyond anything an ordinary individual should possess. Lucilla remembers that Ned discovered both her illness and the trauma behind it, yet never lost his composure. He is probably still nearby, quietly building a solution she cannot imagine. A knight formally introduces Reese as captain of the White Dragon Chivalry Order. Her reputation has reached even the royal household, especially for her extraordinary battle record. The audience is interrupted by urgent news. A messenger has searched the castle because someone important has vanished from the capital. The missing person is Ned's father. After learning that Ned was involved with Enluvidia, he departed without warning and left no clear explanation. His destination is unmistakable. He is heading straight toward the poison dragon. Ned's preparations accelerate at once. The pieces are moving, the deadline is closing, and now his own father has entered the battlefield. Ned's group reaches the poison dragon's lair, a barren wasteland where the ground itself has been ruined by venom. Nothing living remains near the entrance. Everyone drinks antidotes designed to resist the poisonous mist. The protection is temporary, especially for a non-combatant like Ned, so every minute inside the lair matters. Ned thanks the allies who worked through the night preparing supplies and persuasive materials. Though exhausted, he insists he can still direct the operation. Meru joins the expedition, bringing the force to 14 members. She thanks Ned for standing beside Lucilla, while he warns everyone not to mistake determination for safety. The poisonous landscape grows darker as they approach the nest. Ned raises his hand, the operation begins. The White Dragon Knights charge into a dense cloud of toxic miasma. Prolonged exposure could kill them even through their countermeasures, so they must keep moving. The poison dragon thickens the mist, trying to overwhelm their resistance before the battle truly starts. Reese anticipated this and orders the formation forward. She strikes first, cutting through the cloud and forcing the enormous beast to reveal itself. The opening exchange shakes the entire lair. Their blades barely scratch the dragon's scales, and its body proves tougher than their reports suggested. Ned orders them to keep testing. Every defense has a weak point. The dragon's power drives one squad back, but the knights rotate immediately. While one unit retreats, another attacks and keeps the pressure from breaking. Ned's formation alternates front and rear squads, allowing wounded fighters to recover and receive medicine without leaving the dragon unchallenged. It is a battle of endurance against poison itself. Meru handles support from behind, admitting that her level allows only minor tasks. Watching the poison dragon firsthand, she finally understands how terrifying the first campaign must have been. The White Dragon Order remains the main force, while Meru moves freely as a stealth operative and searches for openings. Ned uses every fighter according to their strengths. The knights worry that Reese is becoming isolated, but Ned refuses to panic. If anyone can survive alone at the front, it is her, and the rest of his plan depends on that certainty. Reese crosses in minutes a distance that would take ordinary soldiers hours. Even so, their forces are being pushed toward exhaustion. Ned prepares the trump card. Lucilla's condition is worsening, and the White Dragon Order cannot maintain this battle forever. They must act now. The decisive phase begins. The battlefield erupts as the dragon tears through stone and sends shards across the lair. The knights scatter, narrowly avoiding the impact. Rhys shields an injured comrade and checks the formation. They are still standing, but the dragon has barely begun. Their attacks are not meaningless, yet none carries enough force to finish the beast. The squads continue rotating, buying time while Ned searches for a decisive opening. They identify vents along the dragon's body where poison escapes. If a blade can pierce one before the mist thickens again, the wound may reach far deeper than its scales. A sudden projectile strikes near the monster, revealing that Ned's father has entered the fight from a distant position. Ned recognizes his timing immediately. The next phase is ready. The poison dragon fights with overwhelming strength but little intelligence, relying almost entirely on instinct and brute force. That makes it terrifying and predictable. Ned turns that weakness into a target. Every repeated attack draws the beast into the same pattern, and its brightest vulnerability slowly comes into view. The signal is given. Rhys drives her blade directly toward the exposed point. Bullseye. The poison dragon reels as the coordinated strategy finally weakens it. If the White Dragon Order keeps attacking in sequence, they may be able to hold it down. But the monster releases another wave of poison, and the pain overwhelms the front line. Vision blurs. Breathing becomes difficult. The formation starts to collapse. One knight is caught in the blast and thrown across the battlefield. Before the dragon can finish her, someone charges through the mist. Ned pulls her clear, earning a furious lecture for risking himself. He refuses to argue. There is no time and he will not watch an ally die. The rescued knight rejoins the formation and tells Ned to leave the fighting to them. Once again, his friends save him while he creates the chance they need. Ned realizes the poison affects their mounts as well, making every charge increasingly dangerous. He orders the squad to fight carefully while he preserves the remaining strength from some for one final assault. The dragon lunges again, jaws wide enough to swallow rider and horse together. The knights brace themselves. Ned shouts for everyone to defend. The poison breath is coming. Dragon breath is one of a dragon's deadliest abilities, releasing stored energy in a single overwhelming blast. Anything caught directly within it can be reduced to ash instantly. The White Dragon Knights survive behind layered defenses, but their strength is nearly exhausted. Ned orders medicine and replacements to reach them immediately. Rhys warns everyone to remain alert. The breath may be weakened, yet the dragon is still capable of striking at close range. The warriors tighten their formation and push ahead. Watching the knights stand again reminds Ned of Rhys's words from the previous night. Heroes are not chosen randomly. Something inside them keeps rising even after fear and pain. Although Ned avoided the center of the blast, the shock still tears through his body. As he struggles to remain conscious, an old dream returns. Once, Ned wanted to become a hero. Aspiration may fail, bodies may break, but one thing can survive both. As a child, he dreamed of defeating evil, carrying people's hopes, and protecting the world from chaos. He never knew exactly where the desire came from. He only knew it was real. Perhaps it began with heroic tales or songs sung by tavern bards. Whatever the origin, young Ned wanted nothing more than to hold a sword and fight for someone else. Reality answered cruelly. Ned possessed average strength, poor stamina, and no exceptional physique. Compared with his peers, he had no talent for heroic combat. He discovered an aptitude that made leveling unusually difficult. His intelligence was ordinary, his memory unremarkable, and even learning magic became another humiliating failure. No matter which discipline he tried, the gap only widened. Every test confirmed the same truth. Effort alone could not make his body into a hero's weapon. Eventually, Ned accepted that he had no combat talent. He made a painful decision. He would never become a hero. Even after abandoning the dream, he never stopped admiring those who protected others. That respect led him to walk beside powerful adventurers instead of trying to surpass them. Years passed, and talented people gradually gathered around him. Ned realized that giving up the sword did not mean giving up his purpose. Supporting heroes could be meaningful too. Then his adventurer party was appointed as Intel's official hero party. Standing among them, Ned briefly believed the dream he had buried might return in another form. He hoped he could still become a hero. Even after being expelled and called useless, Ned cannot erase the pain. The accusation struck the deepest part of him, because he had always feared it might be true. He remembers that Intel's king had already considered him a candidate for something greater. Ned understood the politics around Stardust Lights, yet he still failed to prepare for the betrayal. More than fame, Ned had wanted sincere recognition. He did not want praise manufactured by political maneuvering. He wanted someone to see the value of what he truly did. That desire never faded. Unable to become the hero he imagined, Ned continued clinging to a half-finished dream he could neither fulfill nor abandon. Being thrown from the hero party hurt more than he expected. He tried to pretend it did not matter, but both his body and mind carried the wound. For a moment, Ned wonders whether his mind has finally broken. His allies tell him not to force himself forward, but stopping now would abandon everyone depending on him. A voice cuts through the fog of memory. He cannot fight. Ned remembers the truth he has spent years learning to accept. He does not need to become someone else. His limits, failures, and strange strengths have shaped the person he is today. There are things only heroes can do, and things only Ned can do. Meru's presence reminds him that he is not fighting alone. Ned refuses to hate himself merely because he lacks a warrior's power. Giving up the sword is not the same as giving up on the ideals that once made him dream. Today, countless people have carried him this far. In return, he will use everything he has to save Lucilla from a fate she never deserved. That is his mission. Meru warns that the knights are nearing their limit and demands new orders. Ned rises despite the pain. He will not allow anyone to challenge the dragon alone again. Back at the castle, Lucilla listens through the communication stone and realizes that the heroic desire still burns inside Ned. He failed to become a conventional hero, yet he continues breaking his limits whenever someone waits for his help. Over the connection, Meru recalls a story from her family. Years ago, her father was rescued not by Ned's own sword, but by an adventurer Ned found and sent at exactly the right moment. Meru explains that her father remained proud of that rescue because Ned understood his need and connected him with the person who could answer it. After traveling beside Ned, she finally understands why. Ned may possess no overwhelming power, but he knows how to make others stronger and never wavers when someone needs him. Meru once felt weak. Now she knows she can entrust herself to a man like that. Speaking through the communication stone, Meru tells Lucilla that Ned may never become a traditional hero, but he knows how to make heroes stronger. She asks the princess to trust him for the same reason everyone else does. At the castle, a messenger arrives with a letter Ned wrote after staying awake all night. His instructions are simple. Lucilla must read it to the end, because the person he wants to save is her. The letter explains that Ned has already prepared a plan for the battlefield. Through the communication stone, Meru urges Lucilla to move quickly, even if she still cannot understand how the pieces fit together. Lucilla opens the pages and finds an unexpected title, a ranking of the strongest humans in the world. Ned has placed her name inside it. The list begins with legendary figures such as Adventria, Seven Yggdrasil, and Ryuzen Alhazard. Lucilla cannot understand why Ned would include her among names feared across the world. Dozens of candidates follow, each considered one of humanity's greatest monsters. Even near the top, the ranking is packed with warriors Lucilla has never heard of. The lower the number becomes, the more terrifying the names grow. Then Lucilla reaches the entry Ned wanted her to see. Scattered throughout the letter are rankings, histories, and explanations written by Ned himself. He has spent the entire night turning impossible power into something Lucilla can measure. Her name appears at number 52. If the ranking is accurate, Lucilla possesses the 52nd greatest potential among all living humans. The result is not meant as praise. Ned is showing both the danger of her dragonization and the scale of the power sleeping inside her. Lucilla can already imagine his irritating grin. Ned explains that simply handing her a list would not be enough, so he documented the reasoning behind every placement. His conclusion remains unchanged. Lucilla is ranked 52nd. No matter how vast the dragon's power inside her feels, it stops at rank 52. The ranking was supervised by Merlin the Great Sage and Lucas, the King of Wisdom, experts who understand powers beyond ordinary knowledge. Because those two collaborated directly, Ned considers this the most accurate list ever assembled. Yet he asks Lucilla to remember only one lesson from it. Do not underestimate the world. Countless people can defeat dragons with their bare hands, and at least 51 individuals stand above Lucilla's current power. Compared with the true monsters roaming the world, Lucilla is not a monster at all. There are still many people who would face her without fear. That is Ned's point. Ned adds one final truth. He has personally met 47 people ranked above her, and he considers himself another person who does not fear her. Even the poison dragon did not retreat from her power, so why should she retreat from it herself? Ned's letter tells Lucilla there is no reason to hide her power forever. Somewhere in the world, someone will always be stronger, and by the time she reads these words, he may already be risking his life outside the castle. He asks her to treat this battle as an experiment. If she can use her strength to save even one person, perhaps she can begin seeing it as something other than a curse. Lucilla realizes this is simply how Ned lives. He asks for help, creates opportunities, and trusts others to decide what they will become. If this were an epic tale, the day would not belong to a hero named Ned. His role is different. The world is filled with heroes waiting to rise. This time, Lucilla Invidia is the one being called forward. Lucilla has always feared the dragon power inside her. But Ned's words finally change the meaning of that strength. Perhaps she can become a hero before the disease consumes her. She is hidden behind walls and darkness, believing nothing existed beyond them. Now she understands that someone is waiting for her. She chooses to step forward. With Ned's letter held tightly against her chest, Lucilla leaves the castle and walks toward the battlefield. The first step is small. It changes everything. As she travels, the transformation begins. Scales spread across her skin and wings tear free, but this time she does not resist. Voluntary transformation brings no pain. Lucilla feels the immense power awaken and asks herself what it truly is, a weapon for destruction or a sword that can save someone. The answer cannot be found in the power itself. Fangs and claws can slaughter the helpless or defend them. Purpose decides the difference. Lucilla cannot yet promise she will save everyone, but she knows who deserves to make the choice. Ned entrusted this decision to her. She will answer it herself. Back at the lair, the knights hold the poison dragon in place, while Ned waits for the final signal. Lucilla is coming. Ned confirms that every piece is ready. The moment Lucilla enters range, the operation will shift into its decisive attack. Rhys's glorious sword carries a devastating power capable of heavily damaging the dragon. But its wide destructive range could strike allies as well. That makes it perfect for a sudden ambush, and dangerous to use too early. Ned keeps the knights acting as if they are merely exhausted survivors, allowing the poison dragon to grow careless. Poison attacks are slowing. The trap is almost complete. The poison dragon has finally moved close enough to its nest for Ned's real strategy. Unlike the previous alliance, this smaller force can coordinate cleanly and use Rhys's overwhelming skill without being buried in chaos. Ned orders everyone to maintain the exact distance. One step too close would expose them to the blast meant for the dragon. Rhys plants her weapon, draws in power, and prepares the technique that can pierce the monster's defenses. The battlefield falls silent around her. She unleashes dragon-piercing Great Light Lance, a concentrated beam meant to end the fight in one strike. Ned orders every knight to clear the line. Now, the poison dragon senses the danger and twists toward them, but the White Dragon Order takes its assigned positions. Ned's signal has come. Rhys drives the technique forward and immediately commands the others to retreat. Once released, the attack cannot distinguish friend from foe. The great lance tears across the wasteland, carving through stone and poison alike. Its light swallows the dragon's enormous body. The impact detonates inside the lair, sending a wall of debris into the sky. Even the waiting knights can barely remain on their feet. For several seconds, nothing can be seen beyond dust and shattered rock. No one knows whether the monster is dead. As the smoke begins to clear, Ned and Rhys search the crater. Did it work? A silhouette rises from the destruction. The enemy is still alive. The strike was powerful enough to tear away part of the poison dragon's body, but its vitality remains terrifying. Wounded and enraged, it becomes even more dangerous. The monster releases another wave of poison, forcing the exhausted squad back. Ned reminds them that every second they survive is buying time for the final participant. The knights brace behind their shields and endure the toxic storm. Their task is no longer to win. It is to keep the dragon facing them. The creature prepares to charge through the weakened formation. Ned watches the sky, waiting for the one change that will complete his plan. A brilliant shape descends from above. Lucilla has arrived. Lucilla crashes into the battlefield in full dragon form, catching even the poison dragon off guard. Ned looks up at the creature she feared becoming and sees an ally. Her wings spread across the ruined sky. They were meant for this moment. The poison dragon hesitates before the unexpected challenger. That brief confusion gives Ned exactly the opening he needed. Ned orders the knights to lower their defenses because the dragon above them is on their side. Lucilla jokes that she nearly arrived too late, and he admits another few seconds might have ended everything. Lucilla dives, meeting the poison dragon head-on. Their collision sends a shockwave across the wasteland. Claw strikes claw. Fang meets fang. The two dragons tear through the air at a speed the exhausted knights can barely follow. The poison dragon tries to crush Lucilla beneath its weight, but her smaller body turns with surprising control. She refuses to be overwhelmed. Lucilla's dragonization reaches its full power, allowing her to fight the ancient monster on equal ground. The strength she once feared now grows stronger the closer she comes to protecting others. The knights can only watch as Lucilla battles the enemy they had struggled merely to contain. She tears through its defense and drives it away from the formation. Seeing Lucilla move with such freedom, Ned finally understands why controlling the transformation matters. She has not become a monster. She has become herself without restraint. The two dragons spiral upward, exchanging blows above the shattered lair. Neither yields. Ned calls out that the power inside Lucilla is nothing to fear. It answers her will, and right now her will is stronger than the curse. Lucilla gathers everything she has into one final charge. The poison dragon opens its jaws to meet her. She stops questioning what a hero should look like, and follows the feeling that has always been inside her. The desire to protect, to move forward, and to choose for herself. That decision changes her power. The dragon form is no longer a prison built from fear. It becomes a weapon guided by purpose. From the bottom of his heart, Ned welcomes Lucilla to the battlefield. A new hero is born. Lucilla defeats the poison dragon and earns Ned's respect. Not because she acted alone, but because she chose to save others while depending on those beside her. The ancient monster collapses, and the exhausted knights celebrate. Yet Ned knows the battle is not completely over. Rhys remarks that Lucilla's raw power could place her among the world's top 10 if properly trained. Ned reminds her that the victory also depended on persuasion, preparation, and everyone who weakened the dragon first. Rhys's main task was landing the decisive strike on the poison dragon before Lucilla arrived. She teasingly demands recognition for doing far more than merely delivering a letter. Ned approaches Lucilla and asks how she feels after returning from dragon form. Her expression suddenly twists with panic. The transformation begins reversing completely, including the clothes that could not survive it. Lucilla realizes what is about to happen. She returns to human form with nothing left to cover her, and screams loud enough to shake the lair. Ned turns away in terror while everyone else erupts into chaos. Lucilla vows never to transform in front of them again. The humiliating aftermath nearly overshadows her first victory, but the meaning behind the battle remains unchanged. Then the dead dragon's body begins leaking an enormous pool of poison. The battlefield has gained a new emergency. The concentrated venom will spread rapidly and corrode the surrounding land beyond recovery. Even in death, the poison dragon remains a threat, and Lucilla is too exhausted to contain it alone. Ned considers using another overwhelming attack to erase both corpse and poison, but even Rhys cannot produce such power again. As the group searches for an answer, a familiar voice reaches the communication stone. An ally casually explains that the confiscated communication device was recovered by tying up its guard. The situation may be absurd, but the caller has exactly the kind of power Ned needs. Ned asks why the ally is not fighting the Demon Lord. The response reveals a different concern. A protective garment placed on Ned has been destroyed, suggesting he was recently in serious danger. The caller says that problem has already been handled with a massive attack against a rampaging purple lizard. Ned stops breathing for a second. The ally repeats that a huge attack was fired directly at the creature. Ned immediately realizes the power belongs to someone ranked 4th in the temporary human rankings. Ned orders everyone away from the corpse. A superpowered long-range slash is heading straight toward the poison dragon. Run. The entire group runs as the distant slash descends. A blinding wall of force tears through the poison dragon's corpse and the poisoned ground beneath it. The blast consumes the wasteland in one clean sweep, erasing corpse, venom, and ruined earth from the battlefield. When the light fades, the poison has vanished completely. The sound of the strike reached them only after the destruction was already finished. The distant ally cheerfully says farewell and mentions reuniting with the old group someday. Ned remembers how extraordinary Stardust Lights once was, and how impossible its members still are. Lucilla stares at the restored land, amazed that one of Ned's acquaintances casually erased the aftermath. She finally grasps how enormous his network truly is. The poison dragon crisis ends without further sacrifice. Ned's coordination allowed every fighter to contribute, and victory came from combining strengths rather than worshipping one champion. Back in Intel, officials review compensation claims for the destructions caused whenever Stardust Lights lost control. The financial damage has become impossible to conceal. The Chancellor is interrupted by a diplomatic request from Inluvidia. He already suspects the visitor has come to discuss the very crisis Intel tried to exploit. Emma, Inluvidia's diplomat, appears before the king and asks directly whether Ned was expelled from the hero party. Her calm question carries the weight of an accusation. She calls the decision foolish and asks about the party's previous structure. The court struggles to explain why the person holding everything together was discarded. Emma recounts an older legend. History's strongest adventurer group, 7 members who vanished after engraving their names across the world. Their story was called the Meteor Brigade, Among the seven was a figure titled the King of Alteration, reputed to master countless disciplines. That title became one of the greatest mysteries surrounding the legendary party. The court assumes the King of Alteration possessed overwhelming personal strength. Emma corrects them. The title did not belong to one unbeatable warrior. Whenever the Meteor Brigade acted, its leader recruited exactly the specialists needed for each mission. The title King of Alteration passed to whichever ally temporarily filled that role, while the leader coordinated them all. The supposedly omnipotent hero was actually a collection of masters brought together by one person. The power was not inside a single body. It was the ability to make many people act as one. Emma reveals the implication. Ned follows the same pattern. Whether or not he openly claims the title, his hidden strength resembles the legendary King of Alteration more than anyone realizes. Emma admits she once acted under the title King of Alteration while traveling abroad. She knew Ned's identity because he had trusted her with it, but his insistence on secrecy has now created a political disaster. The king briefly considers using Ned's hidden identity as leverage, then realizes no one would believe the accusation without proof. The secret is powerful, precisely because Ned never claimed it publicly. Fear overtakes the court. If Ned truly controls allies on the level of the legendary Meteor Brigade, Intel cannot afford to make him an enemy. The Poison Dragon request must be cancelled immediately. Officials rush to prepare apologies and reparations, desperate to erase the impression that Intel tried to kill him. Their panic worsens when they learn Enluvidia has already slain the Poison Dragon. The court wonders whether Ned anticipated an assassination attempt and prepared for it from the beginning. With days still remaining before the deadline, every possible retaliation now terrifies them. Then a more frightening thought emerges. If Ned truly operates at the Meteor Brigade's legendary level, perhaps killing the Poison Dragon was never impossible for him at all. A report arrives confirming the monster was defeated minutes earlier in Enluvidia. The impossible condition has been fulfilled. The king's response is immediate and desperate. He withdraws the Demon King's subjugation strategy and orders the official hero party disbanded before it causes another catastrophe. Elsewhere, Ned considers what the king may request after the expedition. His companions warn him not to assume the worst aloud, but everyone understands that political consequences are coming. Ned prepares for negotiations while Lucilla recovers. The dragon is dead, yet the larger conflict surrounding his identity has only begun. News of the Poison Dragon's defeat spreads across the nation, along with the truth of Lucilla's dragonization. Though the curse may still influence her, she begins training by transforming in controlled conditions instead of hiding. Ned reveals that another acquaintance also suffers from dragonization disease. Lucilla guesses the distant swordsman whose final slash erased the corpse, and once again realizes how extraordinary Ned's connections are. The legend of Stardust Lights and its predecessor, the Meteor Brigade, sounds grand in historical retellings. Ned insists the truth was far less deliberate. The group was never formed around a noble philosophy. After abandoning his dream of becoming a hero, Ned began surviving by borrowing the strengths of others. Difficult missions required specialists, so he chose collaborators suited to each objective, and 6 remarkable people gradually became his core partners. For a long time, those 6 never gathered face to face. Each had a powerful personality and refused to yield to hardship, but the conquest of the Sky Temple finally required every one of them. 7 old friends entered the Sky Temple together and achieved what no army could. They conquered it, brought the floating structure crashing down, and created the legend later remembered as the Meteor Brigade. The 7 adventurers became so synchronized that their teamwork felt like telepathy. Together they faced enemies no individual would challenge, and each gradually believed their adventures could never end. That victory marked the beginning of the 7 Luminaries Meteor Corps. Their roles were assigned almost casually, but repeated missions sharpened them until the group's true power became famous across the world. Glory always creates expectations. Towns began treating the Meteor Corps as permanent protectors, leaving every dangerous request to them simply because the 7 were capable of handling it. The party had never been formed around a grand mission, yet people everywhere demanded heroism from them. Fame turned 7 free-spirited adventurers into symbols carrying the world's expectations. One day, monsters attacked a town while the party was away. By the time the 7 returned, homes were destroyed, and the residents had suffered without anyone capable of resisting. Instead of blaming the monsters or their own lack of preparation, the townspeople attacked the Meteor Corps for not being present. Ned recognized the reaction for what it was: scapegoating. The same pattern repeated wherever they traveled. People no longer saw companions pursuing adventure. They saw convenient heroes obligated to solve every crisis. Ned finally made a decision. He proposed disbanding the 7 Luminaries Meteor Corps, at least temporarily. No one objected. Each member had felt the burden, even if none had said it aloud. Their fame had grown too powerful, attracting endless requests and turning exploration into duty. Ned had even recruited specialists from across the world, but greater strength had only increased the demands placed upon them. They agreed to separate and walk their own paths until the world stopped expecting the Meteor Corps to solve everything. Someday they would gather again. For now, it was goodbye. The members concealed their identities and returned to individual adventures. Ned continued believing that one day a new party might rise, one capable of surpassing even the legendary 7. After telling the long story, Ned's exhaustion finally catches up with him. His fatigue strikes without warning, and his companions force him to rest. Following the Meteor Corps' dissolution, Ned began traveling alone at a slower pace. The quiet journey lacked the old excitement, but it also lacked the constant chaos of 6 extraordinary companions. That solitude ended when he unexpectedly encountered Lloyd. A simple reunion redirected the next chapter of his life. They shared a meal, resumed talking as if no time had passed, and decided traveling together would be more entertaining. With reasoning that flimsy, Ned gained a new companion. More powerful eccentrics gradually joined them, and the loose group became Stardust Lights. The name was simple. The members were not warriors, scholars, resurrection specialists, and other monsters rivaling the old Meteor Corps. News of Stardust Lights now spreads across the continent, and many already call them the successors to the 7 Luminaries Meteor Corps. Ned finds the comparison premature. They are still a collection of troublesome children, but their potential is undeniable. A full reunion of the Meteor Corps remains impossible because its former members are scattered across the world, each pursuing a different calling. Even so, Ned's network can trace connections are still his greatest weapon. Soon after the Poison Dragon's defeat becomes public knowledge, Ned is summoned to the royal audience chamber. The king has arrived, and he wants to speak with the man at the center of the incident. At the king's request, everyone else leaves the hall, including Lucilla. Once the doors close, ruler and adventurer are left alone beneath the vast ceiling. For several tense seconds, neither man speaks. Ned studies the king's expression, wondering whether an apology, an accusation, or a political demand will come first. The king finally credits Ned with defeating the Poison Dragon, but Ned immediately rejects the praise. Lucilla and the White Dragon's Knights won that battle. He merely helped create the opportunity. Ned even admits that he spent much of the fight acting as bait, while Lucilla delivered the decisive blow. The king already knows the full story, and also knows that, before all this, he tried to trade Ned's life for his daughter's salvation. The king does not hide behind excuses. Like Lucilla, he kneels before a commoner and offers a sincere apology, proving that the princess's humility was never an act. Still, remorse alone cannot erase what happened. Ned recognizes the desperation behind the king's decision. The poison afflicting Lucilla had nearly reached its final stage, and the ruler believed subjugating the dragon within a single week was his daughter's last chance. That was the source of the king's panic, Lucilla's dragonization disease. He was not merely protecting a princess or preserving the throne. He was a father watching his child run out of time. The king had planned to mobilize the army, kill the poison dragon, and search for a cure. Lucilla, however, could not accept soldiers dying for her sake. Every casualty would have become another burden on her heart. By then, Lucilla's condition was already critical, leaving the king trapped between duty, fear, and love. Whatever his political interests, he could not abandon the faint possibility that Ned might save her. One last hope. Having offered his apology, the king asks what reward Ned desires. Ned requests no treasure or title, only permission to exchange information and maintain direct contact whenever either side needs advice. The king accepts and gives Ned a royal communication device. Ned leaves satisfied, reminded once again that a dependable connection can be more valuable than the sharpest sword. When the private meeting ends, Lucilla rushes over and anxiously checks whether Ned has been injured. He stares at her in disbelief. It was a conversation, not a duel. Lucilla admits she feared the discussion might come to blows, but Ned reminds her that fighting has never been his strength. She relaxes and praises her father as a good king. Ned already knows. Lucilla's presence has removed Ned's remaining resentment toward the king. The audience was inconvenient, but it also secured a direct royal contact, an excellent return for a man who builds his strength through relationships. The next morning, Lucilla greets Ned and calls Meru over with a stack of newspapers. 3 new articles have caught her attention. The first announces that Princess Lucilla awakened a dragon's power and slew the poison dragon. Politically, the report is useful, and Luvidia's greatest weakness has vanished, and rival kingdoms can no longer exploit it. The second article publishes a new ranking of the world's strongest humans, supervised by the great sage and the king of wisdom. Lucilla has already been placed near the top. Fame moves fast. Ned distrusts the ranking because it explains neither its standards nor its purpose. More importantly, publicizing Lucilla's power may cause nations and citizens to treat her as a convenient military weapon. Meru points to the careful wording of the article. It says Lucilla acted under Commander Reese and the White Dragon Knights, deliberately spreading responsibility, so the princess will not appear to be a one-woman army. Ned helped shape that narrative in advance, even asking Reese how she would answer reporters. It may make him look cautious, but guiding public opinion now is safer than letting impossible expectations consume Lucilla later. Then they reach the third article. The Kingdom of Intel's Hero Party has disbanded. The announcement was made only yesterday, yet the news has already crossed the border. The collapse attracts harsh criticism because Intel formed a hero party and lost it with astonishing speed. With the poison dragon gone and regional threats changing, Luvidia can finally begin rebuilding. But Ned wonders what became of his former companions. Lucilla interrupts his thoughts with a new request. Since Ned once claimed to possess an exceptional eye for people, she wants him to use it for the kingdom. She asks him to serve as a judge for Luvidia's hero qualification examination. The task lands in his hands without warning. Strangely, Ned does not feel burdened. He has stopped chasing the grand image of a legendary hero and has begun finding satisfaction in the life directly before him. Lucilla is one reason. Ned may never become a mythic savior who rescues the entire world, but he can still reach out to someone in trouble. That is enough. Lucilla asks once more whether he will accept. Seeing her hopeful smile, Ned gives his answer. Of course. His ability, personal networks, continues expanding from one meeting to the next. Every connection opens another path, and another unknown ally waits somewhere ahead. 3 months after the Poison Dragon incident, reconstruction is finally underway. Progress is encouraging, but the sudden workload has overwhelmed the nobles, and the royal family now needs even more dependable hands. At the end of those 3 months, Luvidia holds the first examination for its new hero party. With the Poison Dragon gone, the kingdom is investing generously in the future, and the selection grounds are packed. The application period lasted barely a month, yet 74 complete parties have entered. Lucilla is delighted by the turnout. Ned admits it exceeds his expectations. Lucilla personally oversees the examination and entrusts the judging to Ned, knowing the chosen party may shape Luvidia's future. No pressure then. Her leadership is also political. After defeating the Poison Dragon, Lucilla became immensely popular among the citizens, and placing her at the forefront guarantees attention despite the kingdom's demanding entry conditions. Unlike most nations, Luvidia is not selecting heroes one by one. At Ned's suggestion, applicants must enter as an existing party, because gathering individually talented strangers does not guarantee that their goals or personalities will align. A hero cannot assume there will always be time to build trust after danger arrives. Demon kings and disasters will not wait patiently while strangers learn teamwork. Choosing one's companions beforehand matters. The spectators appear entertained, and Ned watches the contestants with quiet interest. Lucilla notices his expression immediately. He is already enjoying himself. To begin the ceremony, Lucilla pushes the nervous Meru toward the podium. As the examination specialist and Lucilla's closest aide, she must explain the rules to every gathered party. Meru's voice trembles as she addresses the crowd, but she keeps going. Since Lucilla is the organizer, the difficult work of presenting the examination naturally falls to her aide. The selection will last 1 week, beginning with today's first test. While Meru speaks, Ned asks whether Lucilla knows any of the applicants personally. She does not. That makes the outcome genuinely unpredictable. Among the dozens of unfamiliar parties could be the kingdom's next great hero, or merely another group that looks impressive until the pressure begins. Lucilla thanks Ned again for cooperating with the selection, but he brushes off the gratitude. He accepted because judging promising adventurers sounded entertaining, and finances are no longer a concern. Although Ned was invited as the overall judge, Lucilla also asks him to conduct the first-round interviews. Trusting his eye for people, she refuses to assign that role to anyone else. He cannot reasonably decline. Meru announces the first examination. Her delivery is hardly elegant, but the message reaches everyone. Barely a pass. The candidates receive numbered cards and are directed into a waiting hall. Nervous conversations spread as each party prepares mentally for an interview that may end its heroic ambitions before they truly begin. One pair stands out immediately. the A-rank adventurer known as red-haired Alec and his companion Reigen. Their first trial is simple on paper, one leader, one partner, and Ned waiting across the table. The first pair follows a clear structure. Alec serves as leader, while Reigen supports him, and answers when additional detail is needed. They have known each other since childhood, though Reigen spent years adventuring abroad before recently returning. Reigen believes that history is exactly why Alec chose him. No companion understands a leader better than someone who has watched him grow. Although Alec's first suggestion after their reunion was simply, "Let's join the hero party," Alec admits he has another motive. Because the poison dragon delayed Enluvidia's hero program, many of the kingdom's strongest warriors already chose other careers, assuming no party would ever be formed. Reese is the clearest example. Without the dragon crisis, she might have become Enluvidia's hero, but now she commands the White Dragon Knights. With local rivals already committed elsewhere, the new applicants face an unusual opening. Recruiting famous foreigners would bring political resistance, while copying the harsher standards of established kingdoms would eliminate nearly everyone. Enluvidia began late. Therefore, it must search more broadly for unrealized potential. The first examination is designed less to cut people down than to avoid overlooking promising candidates. Limited finances also restrict what the kingdom can test, but most applicants are simply thrilled to have a chance. Alec sees opportunity where others see weakness. He may not match heroes selected by richer nations, yet skill is only one part of a party's value, and he trusts what he can contribute. As an A-rank adventurer, Alec enters the interview with considerable confidence. Party number 7 is called. The supposedly easy first test is about to become very personal. Alec and Reigen step before the interview panel. One leads, one assists, exactly as they rehearsed. They immediately recognize Princess Lucilla at the center, but the remaining judges are harder to place. A young black-haired man sits nearby, looking far too relaxed for someone entrusted with the kingdom's future. Reigen cannot decide whether Ned is a noble, an adventurer, or something else entirely. Before he can solve the mystery, the panel begins questioning two complete strangers. Lucilla starts with Alec, acknowledging the reputation of red-haired Alec. His measured power is only 4, yet he has reached A rank through exceptional skill, judgment, and results that raw numbers cannot explain. Alec proudly says he intends to live up to that reputation, then introduces Reigen as his first and most trusted companion. Reigen spent years in the Republic of Mise and supposedly handled support duties for the party. When asked what kind of adventuring he performed abroad, Reigen gives a confident answer about classification and combat ability. The explanation sounds prepared. Too prepared. He suddenly stops and confesses. Everything he just said was a lie. In the Republic, he barely adventured at all and spent most of his days living carelessly. Only after hearing that Enluvidia was recruiting a hero party did Reigen rush to retrain himself. He never believed the kingdom would actually create one. Now his deception sits exposed before the judges. Alec is furious that Reigen confessed and practically begged the judges to fail them. Reigen, however, answers a few more questions with complete honesty, leaving his leader unable to recover the interview's original plan. His decision was not entirely foolish. One of the examiners possesses a blessing capable of exposing deception, and the truth about Reigen's years in the Republic is widely known there. Continuing the lie would only make things worse. The blessing's owner is no ordinary evaluator. Her ability has frightened nobles and merchants alike, yet she rejected grand offers and chose a peaceful life far from court. Ned's connections reached even her. As one interview ends, Lucilla looks exhausted enough that others ask whether she needs a doctor. She refuses to leave. The princess insists on witnessing the selection from beginning to end. The White Dragon Knights manage the venue and respond whenever staff are needed. Hiring so many capable adventurers cannot have been cheap, but the kingdom is treating this examination as a national priority. Watching the operation forces Ned to revise his view of Enluvidia. Between Lucilla, Meru, the Knights, and Winleen's unusual assistance, the kingdom is approaching the hero selection more seriously than any outsider expected. The interviews continue with the same questions: identity, history, motivation, and the reason each applicant wishes to become a hero. Every answer reveals more than the candidates realize. After the morning session, Lucilla calls a short break. Most applicants come from adventuring or national knight backgrounds, and sitting through so many similar stories has exhausted even the judges. Many examinees possess respectable achievements, including Alec, but none has yet shown the overwhelming presence Ned associates with a true hero. He feels slightly guilty judging them so harshly. Slightly. During the break, Ned finally exchanges greetings with Prime Minister Garba Sterlin, an elderly statesman who carries himself with unexpected energy. He joined the panel on Lucilla's sudden recommendation. The Prime Minister praises Ned for aiding Lucilla and the White Dragon Knights against the Poison Dragon. Ned immediately asks who gave him such a detailed account, already suspecting the answer. Only a handful of people know the full truth of that battle, and Lucilla is one of them. She has clearly described Ned's contribution with enough enthusiasm that even the Prime Minister now treats him with unusual respect. Another specialist then joins them. Winleen, the quiet woman Ned summoned through his network. Her gentle appearance hides the power that makes dishonest people deeply uncomfortable. Winleen bears the God of Judgment's blessing and can identify lies with terrifying accuracy. She has compiled a list of deceptive applicants, though the number is smaller than expected. Few people dare lie during an investigation this important. Lucilla thanks her for cooperating and wonders why someone so difficult to recruit agreed to follow Ned's quest. Winleen's answer comes quickly. She prefers honest people. Ned values his relationships and avoids using them in ways that place others at a disadvantage, which is why even cautious specialists trust him. Lucilla thinks Winleen gives him too much credit. Ned agrees. Winleen's approval carries enormous weight in the Republic, where her judgment can elevate an ordinary person into a trusted public figure. She insists the Prime Minister and the other examiners are genuinely sincere, not merely flattering Ned. Her own reputation grew from years of consistent behavior until people began treating her almost like a saint. Yet Winleen dislikes attention and prefers the peaceful village life she chose for herself. She tells Ned that he seems capable of becoming whatever he wishes. Ned disagrees. His position would collapse quickly without others, and there is very little he can accomplish alone. That honesty is precisely why she trusts him. The judges end the break before the entire schedule falls behind. Time is limited, and dozens of parties are still waiting. Ned asks about special blessings, particularly whether one blessing can overpower another. Winleen explains that existing magic cannot simply defeat such gifts, though rare exceptions and continued research leave room for uncertainty. Even a flawless truth detector cannot replace ordinary investigation. Ned never intended to rely on Winleen for everything. Suspicious applicants will still be examined separately. He has already prepared another layer of screening. The afternoon interviews begin, shifting toward motivation. One B-rank adventurer claims he wants to help people and become a hero, but the judges press beyond the polished answer. Another candidate served a rural lord as a knight and presents respectable strength, discipline, and support from his former master. He wants the examination to recognize both his resolve and his experience. Ned poses a harsher question. If becoming a hero meant fighting in a situation where loved ones would otherwise die, what would he do? Heroic slogans suddenly become inadequate. The candidate answers that he would train every day to avoid ever facing such a choice. It is prudent, but this examination is searching for someone worthy of acting when preparation fails and retreat is no longer available. Hours of nearly identical claims begin wearing down the panel. Every knight speaks of duty, every adventurer of courage, and even Lucilla admits she is tired. Meru understands completely. Ned listens for more than impressive words. Resolve only matters when accumulated experience, fear, and enemy strength collide at the critical moment. Until then, anyone can sound brave. The next examinee arrives. Her name is Saranon Valis, a 17-year-old fighter already regarded as one of Enluvidia's strongest, only a step below Reese. Ned recognizes the name immediately. Saren takes the seat alone. She has entered the entire selection without a support member, apparently confident that she needs no party at all. The rules require parties, but exceptional cases exist. In other countries, individuals powerful enough to operate alone have been called heroes and recruited companions afterward. Saren intends to follow that path. Lucilla does not reject the ambition. She simply advises Saren to rely on companions until she truly reaches that level. Coming from a princess who once tried to carry everything alone, the advice lands with unusual weight. Saren clearly recognizes Ned's name and face, although he has never met her. She also knows enough about his past to suggest that his own support role once carried remarkably low measured power. Her confidence borders on arrogance, but Lucilla reminds everyone that the selected party will represent an entire nation. Saren must prove she can carry more than her own ambition, and she keeps staring directly at Ned. Ned cannot explain the hostility. He remembers names, faces, and adventurer stories, yet Saren is a complete stranger. He invites her to state any objection openly during the upcoming tests. Saren speaks politely to Lucilla, the Chancellor, and the other judges, but every answer directed at Ned carries a blade. Her interview ends without open conflict, leaving him more confused than offended. The others agree that Saren has a blunt, straightforward personality, which may make her motives easier to investigate. Ned deflates anyway. Being disliked by a stranger is difficult to process. Lucilla tells him not to lose focus. A hero candidate cannot be ordinary, and the final examinees may be even stranger. Right on cue, the door opens with a heavy knock. A young woman steps inside, tries to present herself, and immediately crashes face first onto the floor. The entire panel freezes. An unforgettable entrance. She slowly pushes herself upright, while the judges wait in stunned silence. Whatever confidence she intended to display has already vanished. According to the documents, the fallen woman is the leader, Alice Feldrant, while the composed man beside her is her support, Exil Sullivan. Their demeanors appear completely reversed. Alice radiates nervousness as the interview begins. She explains that she worked as an adventurer in the Empire before moving to Enluvidia roughly a year ago. Long ago, the famous hero Rin saved Alice's life. Inspired by that encounter, she became an adventurer and traveled to the Empire hoping to meet her idol again. But the reunion never happened. Her motivation is dramatic but understandable. Alice is less famous than Saren, yet her measured existence power is unusually high, and she spent the past year building experience in the remote Amud region. Ned asks whether Alice's power has always been so high and why she never formed a stable party earlier. The answer is not mysterious or heroic. Alice admits she simply had no friends. The blunt confession is awkward, but considering her timid personality and overwhelming strength, it is surprisingly believable. She met Exil at an adventurer's guild after raising her power. They completed several requests together, discovered that their abilities complemented each other, and eventually registered as a party. Their bond is practical rather than intimate. Alice wanted a strong rear supporter, while Exil needed a powerful frontliner. They are not particularly close, their interests merely align. Alice's timid nature troubles the panel. She accepts praise as if it were an accident and struggles to speak with confidence, traits that seem poorly suited to a public hero. The Chancellor points this out directly. To understand her character, Ned presents a scenario. After becoming a hero, Alice finds civilians under attack by a monster, and she is the only person capable of protecting them. The monster is far stronger than she is, making victory practically impossible. Would she fight and almost certainly die, or retreat and survive? Alice chooses retreat. Lucilla asks whether running away is acceptable for a hero. Alice, genuinely puzzled, asks the same questions back. That response matters more than a rehearsed declaration. She is calculating consequences instead of performing bravery. With the final interview complete, the first stage of Enluvidia's hero party selection ends. After deliberation, the judges decide who will advance to the remaining trials. The story then rewinds 2 months, revealing how Ned prepared for the examination. At an adventurer's guild, staff recognize him immediately and joke that his face appears everywhere. Ned is there on ordinary business when a guild worker asks for help finding a frontline fighter for a dungeon expedition. One connection leads to another, and Zagon has already left a message for him. The guild is recruiting broadly, matching low firepower but durable fighters with parties that need them. Ned watches the flow of requests and notices something else. The guild's stationery supply has become strangely uneven. The clerk admits that a supply route was lost and asks whether Ned knows an alternative. He does. In exchange for a favorable newspaper price, he offers to introduce another supplier through his network. Back in Enluvidia, Lucilla welcomes Ned to stay at the castle, already aware that he has been helping people across the kingdom. He insists it is nothing special. She knows better. Their discussion turns to the hero selection's design. With resources freed by the poison dragon's death, Enluvidia can redirect knights, monitoring teams, and funds toward forming a national party. Ned explains that hero parties differ from country to country because every nation defines heroism differently. All exist for the same ultimate threat: the Demon King and the monsters under its command. A nation generally dispatches only one party, usually no larger than 7 members. Hero parties must travel constantly, remain flexible, and avoid draining the homeland of every capable defender. The title is both honor and burden. Heroes represent their nation against enemies ordinary adventurers cannot face, but strength alone is insufficient. Their journeys depend on taxes, logistics, and public support. Different kingdoms, therefore, prioritize different qualities: education, bloodline, etiquette, reliability, or sheer combat power. Enluvidia must also define its own ideal: fighters strong enough to oppose the Demon King without becoming selfish weapons. Hero expeditions carry noble purpose, political influence, and enormous business interests. Successful parties can return benefits far beyond their cost. Intel's recently disbanded party, however, returned only failure. Ned believes a hero must remain recognizably human, someone who understands fear, laughs with others, and can genuinely move the masses. Lucilla shares that view, though such qualities cannot be measured cleanly in an examination. Many names on the published Strongest Humans ranking fit that description, but they are already famous figures with obligations elsewhere. Lucilla jokes that Ned should simply use his connections to gather them. He declines the impossible assignment. People of that caliber already occupy special positions, and none would casually abandon home to represent another kingdom. And Luvidia's citizens would also reject a completely foreign party. The selection must produce heroes they can call their own. That is why the trials are public theater as well as evaluation. Candidates prove themselves before the citizens, building recognition and trust, while demonstrating that they can represent the nation. While reviewing the ranking, Ned notices something strange. The name Yggdrasil appears twice at the same position. He sends an inquiry, waits several hours, and receives a surprisingly slow response. Rhys asks him to meet privately. She has been waiting, and the subject is serious enough to keep away from ordinary ears. Ned arrives slightly late after running across the castle. Rhys has already removed part of her heavy armor, making the private setting more awkward than he expected. She explains that the breastplate is exhausting to wear continuously, then teasingly draws him closer. Ned tries to object while she calls his embarrassment adorable. Rhys admits she deliberately chose a private room and had been looking forward to his arrival. For a moment, Ned fears the conversation is becoming something entirely different. It is not. The secrecy concerns Yggdrasil, a hidden organization operating within the Amud Empire. Rhys is surprised its name appeared so openly in the ranking, and warns Ned that it is far more dangerous than a simple society. The great sage Merlin and Wisdom King Lucas apparently supervised the ranking with full awareness of Yggdrasil. By publishing the organization alongside other powers, they may be signaling that its movements are already being watched. Their approach is characteristically reckless. Expose the truth and let powerful factions react freely. Rhys insists that Yggdrasil is illegal even within the Empire, regardless of how casually the ranking treats it. Yggdrasil claims to develop weapons capable of defeating the Demon King, but rumors describe inhumane experiments on human subjects. Rhys learned of it after overhearing members discuss a detained prisoner. That prisoner, a soldier accused of espionage, was executed days later. Before dying, however, he helped information escape the Empire, adding another clue to a growing chain of inexplicable incidents. Scholars vanish near remote mountains, unfamiliar monsters appear, and evidence repeatedly points toward an organization protected from within the Empire. Yet imperial authorities have never seriously investigated Yggdrasil. Outsiders who tried to uncover the truth never returned alive. Now that the ranking has made Yggdrasil common knowledge, reckless adventurers may provoke it. Rhys asks Ned to quietly restrain anyone connected to him before that happens. Rhys admits that she has enough influence to handle the matter herself, but she trusts Ned's judgment and network. Speaking with him also makes the threat feel less overwhelming. Trust, not authority, is why she called him. Ned has heard unsettling rumors of his own. Even the mysterious shapeshifter king has supposedly failed to establish contact with Yggdrasil, and several attempts to approach the organization have ended in silence. The sensation is difficult to describe. Yggdrasil does not merely avoid him, but seems specifically wary of him. Had the ranking been designed to investigate the group directly, its name might never have appeared at all. Rhys suggests that this wariness is a form of recognition. Ned's abilities and personality cause powerful people to underestimate him, but Yggdrasil may already understand that he is dangerous. Ned hopes the feeling is only imagination, then returns to the immediate problem. The public hero examination will weaken the castle's outer security, so Rhys agrees to strengthen surveillance and report any disturbance at once. She offers the White Dragon Knights as guards, just as during the Poison Dragon incident. The arrangement protects the crowded venue while also watching for Yggdrasil. Years of trust make the request possible. Among the candidates, one name is already familiar to Rhys. Saren Valis, perhaps the most famous adventurer in Luvidia. Ned's network recognizes her as well. Rhys believes she could still defeat Saren in a direct contest, but their paths differ. Rhys grew stronger beside comrades as a leader. Saren chose to hone her individual power alone. The guild still asks Ned to recommend adventurers for dungeon raids, and his contacts seem to cover the entire city. Yet his attention is shifting toward the selection, whose final schedule is now almost complete. After the first examination ends, the judges gather to decide which parties will advance. The easy part is over, now every name must be defended. The candidates include Alice, Saren, respected adventurers, combat specialists, scholars, students, knight captains, and eccentric travelers from across the world. And Luvidia has attracted far more variety than expected. Some applicants possess little combat experience but exceptional knowledge of magical tools or monster research. Others serve royal institutions or elite orders. The question is not whether they are accomplished, but whether those accomplishments fit a hero party, and Luvidia's national strengths lie in magic, monster materials, special armaments, and industries built around creatures and dragons. The chosen party should reflect that culture, rather than imitate another kingdom's heroes. Winleen has identified applicants who lied, but Ned argues that deception alone should not disqualify them. Heroes will enter national politics in negotiation rooms, where strategic lies can sometimes protect lives. The judges therefore evaluate intent, judgment, power, and future growth together. Saren and Alice both possess existence power 5 despite their youth, making them difficult to ignore even when their personalities raise concerns. Alice troubles Ned most. Her measured power is extraordinary, yet she remains painfully timid and barely reacts under attention. The numbers say hero, her behavior says otherwise. Alice's high existence power may not reflect pure individual strength. Clever methods, stronger companions, repeated battles, and carefully arranged victories can raise the number beyond a person's natural ability. She may have relied heavily on support without realizing it. Her willingness to retreat also deserves nuance. Training daily so one can survive impossible battles may sound simplistic, yet it can express genuine resolve rather than thoughtlessness. The judges must not reduce her to one answer. Their real target is a hero, someone expected to transcend ordinary limitations, so instinct alone is dangerous. Ned shifts attention to Exil, Alice's silent support member, who contributed almost nothing during the interview. Winleen's blessing did not react to him, but Ned has compiled a separate list of people he personally found suspicious. He asks her to compare the names. One discrepancy could reveal what ordinary truth detection missed. Winleen's list confirms many of Ned's impressions, sharpening his confidence in his own intuition. With both sets of observations combined, he decides it is time to make the next move. The obvious lies have already been exposed. Now Ned searches for deception that somehow bypassed the God of Judgment's blessing, especially among the selection's uninvited guests. A large public examination creates the perfect cover for infiltrators to slip among applicants. If an operative reached the hero party or the royal administration, national intelligence and politics could be compromised together. Winleen's blessing is extraordinarily powerful, but information about it is widespread in the Republic. An organized enemy could prepare a magical item or technique specifically designed to neutralize it. That would mean the deception was planned before the examination began. These are not desperate candidates improvising under pressure. They entered with countermeasures and malicious intent. Ned must choose the right contact. He reaches through personal networks and asks a specialist to trace rare armaments capable of suppressing judgment-type blessings. Ned is borrowing another person's strength, and he refuses to forget that fact. Meanwhile, hidden operatives attempt to exploit a brief opening around the examination grounds. Security is tighter than expected, but the crowded event still offers more access than an ordinary day. Their problem is timing. The venue remains under military-level protection throughout the week-long selection, reinforced by soldiers and the White Dragon Knights. There may be no safe opening at all. The infiltrators try force instead. Steel flashes, bodies move, and the supposedly hidden operation erupts into open combat. Reese overwhelms them before the plan can develop. She already knew espionage was underway and had deliberately thinned visible defenses to lure the operatives into exposing themselves. The captives deny wrongdoing and demand evidence, but Reese has been instructed to resolve the matter as peacefully as possible. Ned's voice comes through a communication stone. He will provide the proof. He recites their criminal history in precise detail: assassination, illegal taxation schemes, meetings at the Golden Pig Inn, and repeated complaints from staff about their behavior. The operatives fall silent, caught. Ned identifies the captured operative's objective: stealing in Luvidia's military secrets for an officer from a foreign republic. Their identities, employer, and methods have all been traced. Reese's task is complete. Even the prisoners cannot understand how he uncovered so much with such accuracy. Ned never left the examination hall, yet his network reached far beyond the castle walls. The explanation is simple. A rare, large-scale event was guaranteed to attract spies, and the enemy deliberately registered at the last moment to reduce the time available for background checks. Ned expected rats from the beginning. To trace the blessing-suppressing armament, he contacted the legendary information merchant known as the God of Distribution. Ned even used a discount coupon. The method sounds ridiculous. The intelligence is flawless. Ned still has two similar matters to resolve and apologizes for asking more of his allies. Lucilla is pleased rather than burdened. Lately, he has relied on her often, and she wants that trust to continue. There are countless people who actively want Ned to call upon them, though he remains almost unaware of his influence. Lucilla is simply one more person drawn to his quietly dangerous charm. A new report arrives. Suspicious activity has been located near the examination grounds, not where Ned predicted the second attack would occur. The enemy has shifted its plan. The conspiracy is tied to a baron who wants the hero selection to collapse spectacularly and destroy the king's credibility. Because the examination ends within a week, the attackers must move now. Several operatives are already captured, but someone powerful still lurks near the venue. Ned moves to investigate personally, hoping to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. Under the streetlights, a familiar figure blocks his path. Saren Onvalis greets him calmly. She should not be here. Ned and Saren demand explanations at the same time. The hero candidate's hostility has followed him beyond the interview room, and tonight she is armed. Ned had planned to let Rhys restrain any surviving agents, but Saren has already crushed the nearby operatives herself. She knows they were spies and appears to have been hunting them independently. Saren carries a rare special armament forged from the blood and bones of a thunder beast. Mastering the weapon requires exceptional talent, helping explain how she reached existence power 5 at such a young age. She resents that Ned investigated other examinees more thoroughly than her, but he had hundreds of candidates and limited time. Their argument pauses when reports confirm disturbances across several locations in the capital. Saren then reveals the source of her anger. She claims Ned is the weakness that caused Rhys and the White Dragon Knights to change. Ned cannot understand what she means. Saren once revered Rhys as one of the world's strongest warriors. Since forming the White Dragon Knights, however, Rhys has learned to depend on companions, and Saren interprets that growth as softness. Her obsession is simple, strength above everything. Saren's resentment finally becomes understandable. Ever since Rhys met Ned, she speaks about him constantly, more than she speaks about Saren, who has always considered herself Rhys's rival. Ned asks the obvious question, is Saren jealous? She erupts, refuses the accusation, and insists she only wants Rhys to recognize her strength. The denial is not convincing. She declares that she hates the White Dragon Knights and will force Rhys to acknowledge her. Ned barely has time to answer before the person in question appears. Rhys arrives to collect the unconscious operatives and cheerfully confirms that she tells Saren about Ned all the time. In fact, she wanted Saren to understand how wonderful he is. Then Rhys begins listing story after story about Ned. Saren's expression slowly empties as the praise continues without end. Her rival has not forgotten her. She has simply become a devoted Ned enthusiast. 3 days after the first examination, the second trial arrives. 24 parties have advanced, and the castle prepares for a far more visible event. Ned wakes later than planned after rising too early and falling asleep again. A quiet morning immediately turns into a frantic scramble. He had intended to pack lunch and leave calmly, but several shops are closed for the festival, and his usual routine has collapsed. At least the entire city seems to have the day off. The second examination is officially called the Hero Battle Festival. Citizens pour toward the venue, eager to watch the surviving candidates fight. Anyone may attend, and the matches are arranged to be fiercely competitive. The kingdom wants genuine combat data, but it also wants attention. The more citizens watch, the stronger their connection to the eventual hero party. The streets are already crowded despite the early hour. Ned jokes that the event has become a real festival, while Lucilla is simply pleased that the public is excited by their plan. Along the way, Ned meets a familiar royal guard who is heading to watch the battles. She apologizes for being overly excited, but he understands. Today is meant to be enjoyed. A shopkeeper quietly gives Ned an extra meal made from leftover ingredients and asks him not to tell the other guests. He is a regular, and this small kindness is a reward for the relationships he maintains every day. The whole city feels festive. More people are outside than usual. Merchants call encouragement from their stalls, and Ned heads toward the arena with breakfast secured and spirits rising. Before reaching the venue, he notices something unexpected above the street and stops. His schedule can wait for one more interruption. Lucilla is sunbathing in dragon form, enjoying the morning as if enormous transformed princesses commonly rest above the capital. Ned asks what she is doing. She calmly returns to normal. Nothing unusual here. Lucilla explains that she regularly transforms in the garden so her dragon form will not become unfamiliar. Since overcoming the disease, she has learned to control the change completely and can now alter her body in several ways. Her relationships have survived the transformation, and common citizens have largely accepted her. Even so, dragonization remains rare, and public appearances still expose her to curiosity and judgment. Lucilla dismisses the concern and suddenly proposes that, if necessary, she could simply take Ned as her lifelong partner. Her father would likely approve, since few people could understand her unusual condition better. Ned insists the situation is not that simple, especially because no one has asked how he feels. Lucilla realizes she has rushed far ahead and becomes flustered, very flustered. They agree to postpone the matter until the hero selection is complete, and perhaps for several years after that. Lucilla is content to give Ned time. 5 years should be enough, surely. Before the second examination, Ned raises a serious issue. Despite extensive investigation and Winlean's assessments, one promising party remains suspiciously clean, with no background information he can confirm. The absence of evidence does not prove innocence. Sometimes it is the strongest warning. Ned wants to observe the party longer, rather than eliminate capable candidates without cause. Lucilla accepts his judgment and allows them to continue. Ned takes responsibility for monitoring the unnaturally spotless party during the next trial. At last, the gates open and the crowd erupts. The Hero Battle Festival begins with cheers loud enough to shake the arena. Lucilla formally welcomes the 24 parties that passed the first examination. By the end of today's battles, only 12 will remain as candidates for Inluvidia's first National Hero Party. She asks the citizens to judge the contestants with their own eyes, their skill, courage, character, and worthiness to carry the kingdom's banner. Public trust is part of the test. The responsibility is enormous, but so is the opportunity. Lucilla declares the second examination open. The arena answers with a roar. Faina Palette, a lively performer from the entertainment district, takes the commentator's seat. She treats the assignment as an honorable opportunity and promises to bring every clash to life. Joining her is Heisen, a magical tools researcher and Court Institute analyst, whose colleague is competing in B block. One provides excitement, the other provides technical expertise. Ned arrives as the final preparations conclude. Meru has already completed her supervisory duties and appears relieved to leave the public speaking to professionals. The organizers deliberately designed the second trial as a spectacle, pairing energetic commentary with serious analysis. The competitors enter their blocks. The Hero Battle Festival is underway. The 24 remaining parties are divided into A block and B block. 12 enter each battle, and the final 6 still standing in every block will advance to the last examination. Saren is the overwhelming favorite in A block. With existence power 5, she should overcome a numerical disadvantage, while Alice competes separately in B block and cannot clash with her yet. Other notable contenders include a fortress-like vigilante leader, a noblewoman from a marquis household, and adventurers famous for defeating large numbers of monsters. The field is stronger than it first appears. A top student from the Royal Academy's adventuring department also joins the battle, given unusual freedom despite her noble status. Ned remembers attending school only rarely because he was constantly away adventuring. His old companions often attended classes in his place, creating absurd but fond memories. Meru redirects him toward the present and asks which competitors he expects to survive. Ned cannot guarantee the result, but several candidates showed genuine core strength during the interviews. His prediction is simple: the final survivors will not necessarily be the loudest or most famous. The rules are announced. Each block fights inside a circular sand arena until only 6 parties remain capable of continuing or willing to resist. Referees may declare a fighter unable to continue, and attacking a clearly incapacitated opponent is forbidden. A powerful healing tool can repair most external injuries, allowing the organizers to permit unusually fierce combat. The arrangement is brutal and intentionally theatrical. Ned dislikes parts of it, but a hero must carry the people's hopes, and earning public trust requires more than winning privately. The instant the match begins, several parties surround Saren. Her solitary entry makes her the easiest target and the greatest threat at the same time. Ned watches carefully. Saren's overwhelming power attracts coordinated attacks, and one mistake could let the entire block eliminate the favorite before she can move. They strike together. Spells, blades, and projectiles crash toward the center in a storm designed to leave no escape. Defenses shatter, and multiple combatants are thrown aside. In seconds, 2 parties lose their formations under the force of the exchange. Saren emerges through the chaos and counterattacks, cutting across the arena before her opponents can reorganize. The coordinated trap becomes a rout. One remaining fighter desperately searches for an opening, realizing he may be the last member of his side still standing. He has to escape now. Saren closes the distance first. A single violent sweep ends the attempt and leaves her opponent staring up in defeat. The favorite has answered the entire block. Saren lands amid the wreckage as lightning crackles around her. 3 parties vanish from contention almost instantly, and the audience finally understands that existence power 5 is not an exaggerated number. Her special armament, Raipai Genka, turns her into a bolt of living lightning, fast, precise, and brutally sharp. In the blink of an eye, another formation is torn apart. The weapon's true blade carries so much lightning that ordinary scabbards would shatter after a single draw. Saren therefore wears several cheap swords across her back, sacrificing each sheath to preserve her combat endurance. Another scabbard breaks as Saren draws again, while only 6 parties remain besides her. This is the standard of existence power 5, and the battle is far from over.